Chapter 1342. The ever-changing heavenly lamp appeared. Its light was not strong, but it lit up the sky. Even from hundreds of millions of miles away, one could see the green light covering the sky. Eh? Why is the lamp-bearer imprisoned? Tianzong was surprised. He controlled Jiang Chen's body and could sense the lamp-bearer's situation. Then, he pointed his finger and a divine power entered the depths of the lamp-bearer's soul. It broke the shackles binding the lamp-bearer. Boom! At this moment, the ever-changing heavenly lamp's light suddenly surged. At the same time, the lamp-bearer appeared and held the ever-changing heavenly lamp in his hand. How do I use this thing? Is this how I use it? Tianzong frowned. He injected his divine power and dharma into the ever-changing heavenly lamp and the lamp-bearer. A dazzling sword light appeared. The sword light shone in all directions. Heaven and earth shook and the Tao collapsed. And Xingtian and Enqingtsang saw this and their eyes were filled with fear. They had seen the ever-changing heavenly lamp in prehistory, and knew how terrifying the power of the ever-changing heavenly cut was. However, they did not expect this Taoist soul to appear again after so many eras. Moreover, Tianzong used it with a power that was far more powerful than Jiang Chen's. Go! Tianzong shouted. With a flick of his finger, the sword light shot out like a cold light covered with chaotic colors. The void was cut open and the Tao Dharma was cut open. It was so fast that Xingtian and Enqingtsang could not react in time. Boom! Boom! With two explosions, the sword light cut open in Xingtian and Enqingtsang's protective divine power and dharma, then pierced through them and cut them in half. The power is not as terrifying as we thought. Fortunately. If this was in prehistory, we would have been killed by this sword. Although Xingtian and Enqingtsang were cut in half, they were very glad. They knew the power of the prehistoric Jiang Chen when he used the ever-changing heavenly cut. Even a genuine immortal would not dare to take it head-on. At this moment, the two of them were rapidly reconstructing their bodies. Then, they surrounded Tianzong from the front and back. They didn't retreat. At this point in the battle, there were only two outcomes for them. Either they completely obliterated Jiang Chen today, or both of them would be killed. You've reincarnated 10 times, but in the end you still can't return. Killing you today can be considered as ending a chessboard of several eras. You shouldn't have come here. You haven't returned, so how can you fight against us? And Xingtian and Enqingtsang were full of confidence at this moment, but they did not underestimate their enemy too much. They knew that killing Jiang Chen was extremely difficult. This was going to be a bloody battle. As expected of the original body. His potential is far greater than mine. Tianzong completely ignored Xingtian and Enqingtsang. He frowned as greed flashed in his eyes. He wanted to completely replace Jiang Chen and suppress Jiang Chen's soul and will. However, after a few breaths, he shook his head and sighed. He knew that this was impossible. The bond between him and Jiang Chen was too deep. Unless he found a special way, he could not replace Jiang Chen. Most importantly, if Jiang Chen died, he would die with him. After all, the two of them had the same origin. I originally planned to save these old monsters and then test the potential of the original body before leaving. But since you want to kill me, then I naturally can't let you do as you wish, Tianzong said softly. As his voice fell, he pointed at his forehead. He knew that Jiang Chen was still conscious and could see everything in front of him. What do you say? You want me to take action and annihilate these two? Tianzong asked. However, although he asked the question, Jiang Chen could not answer. However, Jiang Chen's soul was trembling. He seemed to be very excited, as if he had agreed to Tianzong's request. Then, kill! You think I'm afraid of you? Today, two prehistoric almighties of the red spider lilies can't kill a piece of trash like you who hasn't returned yet. At this moment, the three of them roared in unison. Divine power and precepts erupted from their bodies, and they directly activated their domains. Boom! In an instant, there was a series of explosions. The three of them had used almost all their strength. All kinds of secret techniques were displayed, and even more terrifying divine powers were unleashed. A clock appeared, and the hour hand turned slowly. Under Tianzong's control, the power of time became more and more terrifying. He froze Xingtian in place and then punched out, directly shattering Xingtian's physical body. However, before Tianzong could suppress Xingtian's soul, Xingtian rushed over. A thunderbolt fell from his hand, accompanied by a violent aura, and with it, he cut off one of Tianzong's arms. Blood spurted out like divine light. Tianzong did not care about the broken arm. He suddenly turned around, and the power of time erupted again. Xingtian! Save me! And Xingtian was shocked and shouted at the last moment. His eyes were full of fear. Kill! However, before Xingtian could come over, Tianzong roared angrily and used the 1,000 transformations heaven slash again, cutting Xingtian in half. However, Xingtian was too powerful and had an extremely deep foundation. After suffering such a serious injury, he was still alive. His soul was cut in half, but it healed in an instant. Then, his physical body was rebuilt, and he fought with Tianzong again. At the same time, Xingtian stood in the distance, his hands constantly forming seals. A terrifying and inexplicable aura erupted. He was using a forbidden technique. Oh, sh*t. I can't fight them all, Tianzong muttered. It seemed easy, but it was actually very strenuous. Whether it was in Xingtian or in Xingtian, they were too powerful. They were both people who had survived from prehistoric times. Moreover, the two of them were in their prime, and those old monsters could not compare to them. Take him away! Leave Xingtian to us! At this moment, those old monsters who were still alive rushed in and went straight for Xingtian. They had already burned their origin power, so they could not live for long. It was as if fireworks had risen to the highest point in the sky and were about to explode. These old monsters wanted to use the last moment of their lives to release the most brilliant light of their lives. Our era is over. It's difficult to recover to the peak even if we sublimate. Enough! This life, burn! The old monsters roared and rushed in front of Xingtian. Then, they all self-destructed. Boom! Boom! Just like the fireworks, the divine light turned into a tornado and completely drowned Xingtian. However, after a dozen breaths, when the afterglow of the self-destruction dissipated, a drop of essence blood flashed in the void. Then, the essence blood exploded, and Xingtian appeared. He was still alive. However, at this moment, his aura was dispirited, and his face was pale. Even the divine Tao law in his body had become unstable. Obviously, he was severely injured. I underestimated them. I almost couldn't make it. And Xingtian whispered, his eyes flashing coldly. He stared at Tianzong and said, Who else can help you now? Chapter 1343. And Xingtian had almost died, but he had survived. Although he was weak and seriously injured, he was still arrogant and confident. After all, he wasn't the only one here. And Xingtian was stronger than him. In their eyes, no matter how strong Tianzong was, he couldn't beat the two of them. This body isn't yours after all. You can't use its full power, and Xingtian said coldly. I told you to back off, but you didn't. Now you don't have the chance. If I kill you today, the 10 reincarnations will be nothing, and Xingtian said. In this world, there were many people who knew that Jiangchen had reincarnated 10 times, and many wanted to kill Jiangchen, fearing that he would succeed in his 10th reincarnation. Among those who wanted to kill Jiangchen was the Red Spider Lily clan. However, the 3 realms of Yin and Yang hadn't happened yet, and the Dark Blood era hadn't broken out yet. The vanguard of the 3 realms of Yang hadn't attacked either. As a result, many prehistoric almighty experts had been protecting Jiangchen secretly. But now, those prehistoric almighties were either dead or gone. No one could protect Jiangchen. Now was the best time to kill Jiangchen. Let me tell you something. You might not believe me. Tianzong's expression was strange, his body trembling, and cold sweat beaded on his forehead. He said with difficulty, I can't control this body. Oh? What do you mean? And Shi Tian and Enqing were stunned, but they did see that something was wrong with Tianzong. At the same time, in the depths of Jiang Chen's soul, terrifying anger erupted, and a murderous aura rushed into the sky like a black river, swirling around Jiang Chen. He is really angry. Something terrible seems to be coming out from the depths of his soul. Tianzong wanted to control Jiang Chen's body, but it was getting harder and harder. A few seconds after he said this, Tianzong was forced out of his body by Jiang Chen. Boom! In the next moment, an explosive sound rang out from Jiang Chen's body. Baleful energy soared into the heavens, and a pair of eyes that seemed to come from an ancient time and space slowly opened behind Jiang Chen. At the same time, two phantoms appeared on Jiang Chen's body. Upon closer inspection, these two phantoms looked exactly the same as Jiang Chen. One was shrouded in starlight that seemed to originate from the boundless sea of stars, and its entire body was made of stars. The other was enveloped by a green light, as if it had melted into the chaos. Heaven sect? Ha! You've actually gained sentience in this life? At this moment, the illusory figure that seemed to be cast by stars laughed a few times, seemingly very excited. Hearing this, Tianzong stared at the illusory figure with fear in his eyes. Others might not know the identity of this phantom, but he was very clear about it. This person was one of Jiang Chen's reincarnations, Heavenly Star. Heavenly Star! How are you still alive? And Shi Tian and Enqing exclaimed in shock. In their memories, Heavenly Star was already dead. But now, this guy had actually turned into a phantom and appeared on Jiang Chen's body. Is it because my era is too far away? Does no one remember me anymore? At this moment, the illusory figure that seemed to be shrouded in chaos slowly opened its mouth, its voice carrying a trace of displeasure and resentment. You are? This guy, is it really chaos that shrouds his body? And Shi Tian and Enqing were shocked. They probed the wisps of green light, but the moment their divine senses came into contact with the green light, they were instantly swallowed up. Looks like I'm not needed here, Tianzong said softly. The moment he heard the voice of the green phantom, he knew the other party's identity. A curtain of pearls in the eternal sky, singing from dawn to dusk and wine to fall from the blue sky. This person was Tianqing. Tianzong didn't expect that in Jiang Chen's several incarnations, two of the three strongest reincarnations had actually turned into phantoms and appeared. Could this be a trap set up by Jiang Chen's first reincarnation? You guys are really something. Why did you have to provoke him? According to the time, we shouldn't have appeared yet. Heavenly Star said disapprovingly. Heaven Star said snappily. The people of the Red Spider Lily clan are also brainless. You guys don't really think that you can kill him, right? Humph. A bunch of ignorant people. He's reincarnated 10 times. If he can be killed so easily, then wouldn't our efforts have been in vain? Tianqing mocked. Run! Retreat! At this moment, and Shi Tian and Enqing's faces were already pale. They knew the strength of Heavenly Star and Tianqing. Even if they were just phantoms now, they weren't people they could deal with. Moreover, and Shi Tian was seriously injured and there was still Tianzong beside him. If they fought this battle, they had no chance of winning. Let's not talk anymore. Let him play by himself. We'll pretend that nothing happened. If it weren't for a mistake in the reincarnation, we would have returned long ago. Tianqing and Heavenly Star said. Then, the phantoms disappeared, but Jiang Chen's aura skyrocketed. They lent their strength to Jiang Chen, allowing his cultivation to erupt to the peak at this moment. At this moment, Jiang Chen came to his senses. He knew that he was absent-minded just now, but he still remembered that those old monsters had self-destructed for him. His eyes burned with anger, and his murderous aura was violent. There were even grains of pink sand swirling around him. Kill! Jiang Chen shouted angrily. He flew into a rage. He dashed out and stopped in Shi Tian in an instant. Then, with a wave of his hand, a green sword beam burst forth and directly cut Shi Tian in half. And Shi Tian was very strong. Even if he was seriously injured, he instantly reconstructed his physical body. However, Anxingtian's eyes were filled with fear. He stared at Jiangqin in front of him, as if he was looking at him from prehistoric times, overlooking the world, standing at the peak. The battle intent in his heart was gone. There was only one thought in Anxingtian's mind now, and that was to survive. However, before he could escape, a stretch of pink sand fell and drowned him. And Anxingtian was stunned for a moment, and prepared to defend himself. However, after a few breaths, he was puzzled because the sand did not harm him at all. What is this? Tianzong, who was far away, was also confused. The pink sand, no matter how he looked at it, did not feel out of place. However, after a few breaths, Anxingtian's face turned red, and a whimper came out of his mouth, an old monster who had lived for several generations, and a man at that, in the face of life and death, actually, panted. What the F***ck? What is this thing? A special aphrodisiac? Tianzong's eyes widened. He could not believe that Jiangqin in this life had such a thing in his hands. Anxingtian. Save me. At this moment, Anxingtian's body was weak, and the fire in his body was ignited. Even his cry for help seemed a little strange. Chapter 1344. Anxingtian was asking for help, but Anxingtian ignored him and directly escaped into the void. Anxingtian was really scared, especially after he had learned that Jiangqin had merged with Tianqing's and Tianxing's bodies, and that their consciousnesses were still there. He knew that this day's fight couldn't go on, no matter what. If the sacred ground was destroyed, then so be it. If Anxingtian died, then so be it. He, Anxingtian, did not want to die. Kill! At that moment, Jiangqin roared, and the 10,000 transformations heavenly slash fell again, cutting Anxingtian's soul in half. Then, it was drowned by the sand and dust until it disappeared, leaving not even a trace of ashes. Not far away, Tianzong was shocked. He stared at the sand and thought, Jiangqin in this life has mastered another kind of divine power? At first glance, this kind of divine power seemed ordinary and a little dirty. But thinking about it carefully, this kind of divine power was very terrifying. It could affect a person's mind and arouse their desires, just like disturbing others' minds. If this kind of power was cultivated, it might become Jiangqin's killing weapon in the future. You still want to run? A life for a life! At that moment, Jiangqin roared again. He tore through the void and chased after Anxingtian. Jiangqin's speed was extremely fast. After all, he had the power of Tianqing and Tianqing, and his cultivation had broken through to the extraordinaire level. In just a dozen breaths' time, Jiangqin traveled from one star zone to another. In the end, he intercepted Anxingtian in a desolate and dark star zone. No! To be precise, Anxingtian stopped himself. He stood in the dark star domain with a gloomy expression. The murderous intent in his eyes soared and turned into a substantial gust of wind. Do you know where this is? Anxingtian said coldly. How dare you chase after me? If you don't die today, I won't be at ease, Jiangqin said in a cold voice. Although he had lost his memory, seeing those old monsters die still stirred the deepest part of his soul. Jiangqin almost lost his mind. He was so angry that he almost lost his mind. This is the mountain gate of my red spider lily. Anxingtian raised his eyebrows. His previous fear was swept away. After coming here, he was very confident and fearless. As his voice fell, strands of light appeared in the pitch-black starfield. Upon closer inspection, they were bewitching flowers. These flowers took root in the void and merged into the darkness, absorbing the essence of the great Tao. Normally, these flowers would not appear. Ordinary people who passed by would not notice them at all. But now, with Anxingtian's arrival, this place was revived, and the resurrection lilies were in full bloom. You killed Anxingtian? Right at this moment, an aged yet extremely domineering voice resounded from the depths of this pitch-black star region. Immediately after, A huge red spider lily bloomed and a middle-aged man in purple robes walked out from the flower bud. It only took him one step to reach Qingtsung's side. And Tianzong followed. When he saw this middle-aged man, his expression changed drastically. He even secretly sent a voice transmission to Jiangchen, telling him to leave this place quickly. Jiangchen's memories were gone, so he did not know how terrifying Enqi was. In prehistoric times, Enqi's combat strength was ranked in the top 10. Back then, those cultivators were so powerful that there was no lack of perfected immortals. And in that most resplendent era, the fact that Enqi could enter the top 10 was enough to prove his strength. Tianzong did not expect the red spider lily's foundation to be so deep. One of the top 10 mighty figures in prehistoric times had actually survived until now and was in peak condition. This was too terrifying. I don't care who you are. He must die today! Jiangchen stared at Qingtsung. Just as he had said before, he would not be at ease if Qingtsung did not die today. What a joke! I didn't fear you in prehistoric times, let alone now. Enqi said disdainfully. You're not the first reincarnation. You don't have the power to overturn the world. Is that so? Looks like we're not as good as the first reincarnation. At this moment, Tianqing and Tianxing's phantoms appeared again. This time, Jiangchen remained conscious. His heart throbbed. He could sense that Tianqing and Tianxing's power was erupting and pouring into his body. But at the same time, Tianqing and Tianxing's consciousness was gradually dissipating. They were also sublimating to the extreme, fusing their last bit of power into Jiangchen's body. Our consciousness should have disappeared. After all, our bodies have already fused with you. The mission can be considered completed. Tianqing smiled and said, We are you, and you are us. Even if our consciousness has disappeared, we are still here in the end. As long as you are alive, we are alive. Tianxing grinned and then pointed at Qingtsung. Starlight shone in his eyes as he shouted, Kill! There is nothing to fear! As soon as he finished speaking, Tianxing and Tianqing's consciousness completely disappeared. The aura that Jiangchen emitted had reached the half-immortal realm. With just a bit more power, perhaps Jiangchen could break through the shackles and reach the true immortal realm. He looked at Tianzong as if asking if he could lend his power to him. Tianzong shook his head. He didn't want to lend his power to Jiangchen. If Jiangchen really broke through to the true immortal realm and destroyed his consciousness, then wouldn't he have channeled his spirit for nothing? What are you afraid of? Tianxing already said that we can just kill. There is nothing to fear, Tianzong said angrily. Isn't it good to be a little more confident? Forget it, I don't want you. Jiangchen pursed his lips. Then, his eyes narrowed. He pointed at Qingtsung and looked at Enqi. Today, I will kill him. If you dare to stop me, I will kill you too. Ha ha, what a joke. Enqi laughed wildly and said, Even in prehistory, not many people dared to talk to me like this. Today, there is. Remember, I said this. Jiangchen said coldly. Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Jiangchen dashing out. A chime of a bell echoed over his head. From the moment he summoned the clock until now, the clock hand had already turned to 12 o'clock. At this moment, Jiangchen's control of time reached its strongest state. Suppress! At this moment, Jiangchen shouted loudly. Even though he hadn't reached them yet, his time power had already erupted, and he instantly confined Enqi and Qingtsung. Then, under Enqi's shocked and furious gaze, Jiangchen charged in front of Qingtsung and slashed down with the 1,000 transformations heavenly slash, splitting Qingtsung in half right in front of Enqi. How dare you! Enqi was very powerful. He was the first to break free from the time imprisonment, and hurriedly tried to save Qingtsung. However, before he could do anything, a pink sand burst out and drowned him. At the same time, Jiangchen waved his hand, and the Emperor Vine with raging flames nailed Qingtsung's soul in the void. Chapter 1345. Jiangchen was too powerful. He ignored Enchi's attack and nailed Enchingsung's soul into the void. Then, Jiangchen waved his hand again. Enchingsung's soul exploded and dissipated like starlight in the sky. A prehistoric giant had ended. Boom! However, at this moment, Enchi's attack had already reached him. His fist was as bright as the sun, and it bombarded Jiang Chen's back. Puff! After spitting out a mouthful of blood, Jiang Chen turned around abruptly. The 3 Tao souls appeared beside him. This place was like a sea of holy light, and was filled with divine light. Enchingsung is dead. What's the use of your attack? Moreover, I am not afraid of you at all! Jiang Chen shouted angrily. The Emperor's vines shackled Enchi like chains. The immortal fire burned and drowned Enchi. Then, the 10,000 transformations heavenly slash was formed, and the power of time confined Enchi. No one dared to talk to me like this even in prehistoric times, let alone now. Enchi was very powerful. As his body shook, his Taoist power burned and he broke free from the power of time instantly. He clenched his fist and punched out, breaking the Emperor's vines. Then, he stomped his foot and extinguished the immortal fire. Swoosh! With a whooshing sound, he came up to Jiangchen in an instant. Then he threw a punch at Jiangchen. He punched the top of Jiangchen's head with all his might. At this moment, Jiangchen felt like his body was going to explode. If he hadn't been protected by the lamp bearer, that punch would have been enough to kill him. Enchi is different from Enchingsung and Enchitian. He is one of the patriarchs of the Red Spider Lily clan. Tianzong reminded him from afar. Run while you still have a chance. Why should I be afraid of him? Jiangchen stabilized his body. His expression was cold and his eyes were filled with killing intent. However, after he finished speaking, he directly tore open space and entered it. In a few breaths of time, he was nowhere to be seen. This sudden escape caught Enchitsi off guard, and he was unable to react in time. After a few breaths of time, Enchi wanted to give chase, but he couldn't sense Jiang Chen's aura anymore. Is this still the same man from back then? He said that he wanted to fight, but in the end, he ran away. Where's your integrity? Enchi's expression was extremely strange. One had to know that in prehistoric times, although Enchi had not met Jiang Chen's first life, they had met his other lives. In those lifetimes, each of them was a top-notch expert, and they were incomparably arrogant. Even if they died in battle, they would not take a step back. But in this life, what **King's shameless person? That was close! At this moment, Jiang Chun was already billions of miles away. He was lying on a meteorite, panting heavily. He panted heavily and felt a lingering fear in his heart. Because as they fought just now, Tianqing and Tianxing's strength began to decline. If the battle continued, Jiangchen would undoubtedly die. Killing Enchingsung and Enchitian isn't a loss, Jiangchen said softly, but he was immediately displeased. The sacred ground was still there, and he didn't have the ability to destroy it for the time being. Moreover, after this incident, the red spider lilies would definitely be angry. There might even be a few prehistoric giants like Enchi coming out. At that time, Jiang Chen's situation would be dangerous. Sigh. If I didn't chase after Enchingsung just now, I would have destroyed the sacred ground first. Jiang Chen regretted. He had been blinded by anger just now, and now that he thought about it, pooh! After another dozen breaths of time, Tianqing and Tianxing's strength completely disappeared. Jiang Chen seemed to have overdrawn his strength. His face instantly turned pale, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, he fainted and drifted in the starry sky with the meteorite. After an unknown period of time, when Jiang Chen woke up, his injuries had already healed. It's time to go back. I'm afraid Bai Fingyu and the others will be worried about me after coming out and making such a ruckus, Jiang Chen muttered. After getting up and finding the direction, he stepped into the void. A day later, when Jiang Chen walked out of the void and came to a city. He was about to use the teleportation formation in the city when he heard an important piece of news. The sacred ground had been destroyed. Now, the entire great wide world was in an uproar. Just 3 days ago, the sacred ground had been destroyed. This could be considered the biggest thing in this era so far. Fellow Taoist, who destroyed the sacred ground? Jiang Qun had changed his appearance. He was worried that the red spider lilies would chase after him. At this moment, he pulled a man in the city and asked curiously, "I heard that it was a group of Jiang Chen's subordinates and a few of his disciples." The man said, "Holy physique Jianglu, tyrant Wakako, ancient spirit Shao Qingyi, and those few great virtues. It was a battle that happened too quickly. The evil race, the monster race, all the forces that they could use were used. Then, for some reason, the sacred ground didn't have any extraordinaries guarding it. In the end, the sacred ground was destroyed." Hearing this, Jiang Qun was dumbfounded. He froze in place and didn't react for a long time. "These guys. Did they guess what I was going to do?" Jiang Qun smiled bitterly. He could probably guess what Jiang Lu and the others were going to do. Jiang Qun was also secretly glad that he had killed in Xingtian and in Qingsang before. Otherwise, if Jiang Lu and the others attacked the sacred ground, they would undoubtedly be courting death. This era is changing. The sacred ground has been destroyed. Now, no one dares to act rashly, let alone offend Jiang Chen and the others." The man sighed and said, "I really didn't expect that a group of people from the 6 realms would grow up. It's the right time and place." Jiang Chen muttered. If it wasn't for the dark blood era that was about to erupt, if all the extraordinaries hadn't gone to resist the vanguard of the young 3 realms, how could Jiang Chen and the others have risen? Not to mention destroying the sacred ground. All of this had to be said to be the right time and place. And now, Jiang Lu and the others had destroyed the sacred ground, which was equivalent to replacing the sacred ground's position in the boundless world. Just today, many forces had already contacted Jiang Lu and the others, wanting to join them. Jiang Chun and the others have too many forces supporting them. Just the demon race and the evil race are enough for them to do whatever they want in this era," the man said. "In addition, the Supreme Heavenly Palace has also spoken today. Whoever dares to touch Jiang Qun is equivalent to declaring war with the Supreme Heavenly Palace." Jiang Qun was stunned when he heard this. He hadn't contacted the Supreme Heavenly Palace for a long time. Ever since Hongyun went to resist the vanguard of the Yang 3 realms, he seemed to have lost contact with the Supreme Heavenly Palace. But he didn't expect the Supreme Heavenly Palace to actually speak. Could it be that the Supreme Heavenly Palace knows about the matter between me and the Red Spider Lily clan? Now that they have announced it to the world, are they going to help me block the Red Spider Lily clan? Jiang Qun guessed. "Fellow Taoist, let me ask you something else." Jiang Qun suddenly thought of something and asked, "Do you know how to get to the top of the sky?" Chapter 1346. Jiang Qun had always remembered what Lao Ma had said. He wanted to go to the top of the sky to light up the eternal lamp. However, after coming out of the misty forest, Jiang Qun had encountered too many things and had forgotten about the top of the sky for a while. Now that the sacred ground had been destroyed and the Supreme Heavenly Palace had stepped forward to protect him and fight against the Hurricane Lily clan, Jiang Qun was finally free and could go to the top of the sky to take a look. The top of the sky? I've heard of it, but I'm not sure where exactly it is. The man shook his head and then reminded. However, the black market should know. After all, the black market has a lot of information and secrets. When Jiang Qun heard this, he couldn't help but secretly curse himself for being foolish. He had the black market as an intelligence network behind him, so why was he still asking for information here? After that, Jiang Qun left and went to the black market's headquarters through the teleportation array in the ancient city. Now, the 3 giants of the black market were nowhere to be found. No one knew if they had gone to the front line to participate in the war or to conquer the 3 realms. As the number 1 wage earner in the black market, Jiang Qun could be said to be the actual controller of the black market now. Of course, there might be people who were dissatisfied with Jiang Qun before, but after Jiang Lu and the others destroyed the sacred ground, there were probably not many in the black market who dared to be dissatisfied with him. Moreover, Jiang Chun was very decisive this time and revealed his identity in the black market. Now, there was no one in the black market who was dissatisfied with him. The top of the sky is in the depths of the Black River in the Sea of Stars. That was an ancient battlefield where too many mighty figures died. At this moment, an old man in the black market took out a map and pointed to the dark place on the map. Even if the mighty figures in prehistory died, the power in their bodies would remain for several eras. Too many mighty figures died in that battle, and too much power remained, causing the Black River in the Sea of Stars to become a forbidden area. There are violent powers everywhere. If ordinary people were to enter rashly, they would be torn apart by those violent powers. When Jiang Chun heard this, he didn't mind. With his current physical body, as long as he was a little careful, there wouldn't be any major problems. Where are the three magnates of the black market? Jiang Chun asked again. I don't know where the three lords went, the old man said. He had been in the black market for a long time and could be considered a trusted aide of the three big shots of the black market. However, the whereabouts of the three giants of the black market were unknown to the entire Great Thousand World, let alone the black market. After all, the three of them were too mysterious. Their true identities were unknown, and no one knew who they were. Go and gather information about the vanguard of the Yang Three Realms. I'll be back after making a trip to Heaven's Summit. In the end, Jiang Chun left again. He didn't stay for long. After obtaining the coordinates of the summit of the sky, he rushed there at top speed. He had a feeling that the great wide world was going to experience the most terrifying disaster since ancient times. In this disaster, the slightest carelessness could cause the entire Greater Thousand Worlds to collapse. Jiang Chun kept moving forward according to the coordinates. 3 days later, he arrived in the vicinity of a black star field. Looking around, the star field here was the same as the star field of the red spider lily. Everywhere was black. The light emitted by the stars seemed to be covered by an invisible hand. However, compared to the star field of the red spider lily, the darkness here was even more frightening. It seemed to be able to swallow everything. Before stepping into this star field, Jiang Chun heard a shocking explosion coming from the star field. There were also chaotic laws colliding. Occasionally, he could see a beam of lightning suddenly appearing and disappearing in an instant. All of this was caused by the collision of the energy left behind by the prehistoric almighties after their deaths. Can I go in? At this moment, Jiang Chun stood outside the star field and whispered. You should be able to. The three of us will protect you. As long as you don't encounter anything special, it'll be fine, the undying bird said. It was the most spiritual of Jiang Chun's three Tao souls. As for the Emperor's vine and the ever-changing heavenly lamp, they had not yet developed a clear consciousness and could not communicate with Jiang Chun. Sometimes, Jiang Chun wondered why only the undying bird Tao soul had developed a complete and clear consciousness. Was there a secret? And the lamp-bearer was imprisoned by the 3 strands of chaotic qi. What was going on? Previously, when the Tianzong possessed him, the lamp-bearer was released and the shackles on him were shaken off. However, at that moment, Jiang Chun saw that the lamp-bearer had been confined again. Could it be that the lamp-bearer had a grudge against the 3 strands of chaotic qi? Let's go in. After several breaths, Jiang Chun didn't bother to think too much about it, and his 3 doctrine souls showed up at the same time to strengthen his body. His whole body was shrouded in divine light, and he seemed like a monarch who was about to leave the world. When Jiang Chun took a step forward and entered the Black River, his expression changed slightly. He could feel many berserk and chaotic worldly laws colliding with each other in the surroundings. The power from the collision of these laws was comparable to that of a peak emperor. And this was only the outermost region of the Black Sea Galaxy. If we go to the deepest part, will the chaotic laws be even more terrifying? Jiang Chun was shocked and suddenly lost confidence in his 3 Tao souls. Even the undying bird was a little scared. It said weakly, Should we go back? Since we are already here, why should we go back? Let's go in and take a look. We can retreat if we can't. Jiangchen said. Then, Jiangchen moved forward slowly. He was very careful as he was afraid that he would be hit by one of the chaotic laws. Moving forward in the darkness, there was no concept of time. After a long time, Jiangchen's body shook. He felt that the chaotic laws around him were getting stronger and stronger. He had no choice but to set up arrays and barriers around him. With the help of the 3 Tao souls, he could barely move forward. After walking for a long time, when he took the last step, the darkness in front of him suddenly disappeared. Jiangchen was stunned. It was as if he had traveled to another world. Looking around, there was a dazzling radiance in front of him. Some laws turned into giants and soared in the starry sky. There were also chaotic laws entangled together like a taotai that could swallow the world. At the end of this resplendent starry sky, there was a large black river. It was unknown where it started and where it ended, but it flowed through the intersection of space and time. That was the Black River, the place where the peak of the sky was located. This is not good. Jiangchen frowned. He stood where he was and did not dare to move at all. Although this place was bright and seemed gentle, the collision of the laws here was more terrifying than the darkness. Especially the chaotic laws that took form. They seemed to have a wisp of the prehistoric Almighty's will. When the laws collided, there was an explosion of Tao skills. If they were hit, not to mention the 3 Tao souls, even Jiangchen would be turned into ashes. Eh? At this moment, Jiangchen's expression changed. A wisp of chaotic qi came out of his body, and it rushed toward the nearest chaotic laws that took form. Chapter 1347. The wisp of chaos qi was like a taotai as it pounced on the nearest chaos law and swallowed it. Jiangchen was shocked. He knew that the chaos qi was very special and strange. It had an indescribable power. However, the chaos law here was left behind by a prehistoric almighty after his death. Its power was so terrifying that even a half-immortal would be wary of it. But now, it was directly swallowed by a wisp of chaos qi. The most important thing was that after the wisp of chaos qi swallowed the chaos law, it was unharmed. Then, it rushed toward another chaos law. Jiangchen was stunned on the spot. He had no idea what was going on. However, he soon came to his senses and followed behind the wisp of chaotic qi, advancing forward without any hindrance. That's strange. Why are the other 2 wisps of chaos qi not moving? Jiangchen was puzzled. There were a total of 3 wisps of chaos qi in his body. Now, facing the chaos law, only 1 wisp of chaos qi floated out of his body. The other 2 wisps of chaos qi did not seem to be interested in the chaos law here. Could it be that the chaos qi was also divided into different categories? Is it helping me open a path or nourishing me? After half an hour, Jiangchen was getting closer and closer to the Black River. At the same time, the wisp of chaos qi had grown from the size of a thumb to the size of an arm. However, it was strange. Other than the fact that the wisp of chaos qi was a little thicker, there was nothing special about it. Could it be that I didn't eat enough? Jiangchen muttered. Just like that, the wisp of chaos qi kept swallowing the chaos law around it. Jiangchen followed closely behind. In the sea of stars, he meandered toward the Black River. Of course, it was not up to Jiangchen to decide whether he could enter the Black River quickly. It depended on where the chaos qi went. After all, with Jiangchen's strength, it was impossible for him to reach the Black River. He could only walk safely by following the chaos qi. Another 2 hours passed, and this time, the primal chaos qi finally reached the side of the Black River. And Jiangchen finally arrived at the Black River. There was no longer any law of chaos in this place. The surroundings were silent, as if there was some kind of power that isolated all the law of chaos outside. It was impossible to tell how long the Black River was. It seemed to have appeared from the depths of the endless void, and then disappeared into the depths of the endless void. This huge river seemed to have appeared out of nowhere, and its origin was unknown. And now, as soon as the primal chaos qi arrived at this place, it actually entered the Black River. Jiangchen was startled. He looked at the Black River. It was pitch black below, but there was an indescribable aura emerging. This type of aura was extremely special, extremely obscure, as if the great Tao of the heavens merged together, able to melt all things. "Will the chaotic aura be able to return?" Jiang Chen asked softly. But after a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen's worry disappeared. This was because the water level of the river was decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. The water level continued to fall. After the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the entire Black River had disappeared. Upon closer inspection, there were corpses and bones everywhere on the Black River bed. There were also broken weapons and fragments of a world that had collapsed. This place was like a mass grave, where some of the most powerful beings from prehistory were buried. However, at this moment, there was one more thing on the Black Riverbed, and that was Jiang Chen's wisp of chaotic energy. Upon closer inspection, the chaotic aura had become extremely thick and long. It looked like a python that was more than 10 meters long. It lay quietly on the riverbed, as if digesting what it had just swallowed. "This guy really can eat and drink." Jiang Chen smiled bitterly. He did not know why the chaotic aura was like this. Then, Jiang Chen's eyes shone brightly as he scanned the Black River. But other than the things he had seen before, he did not see the so-called eternal lamp. "Where is the eternal lamp?" Jiang Chen was puzzled. He thought that the dragon vein would not lie to him. But now, this place was empty. Even the river water had disappeared, but he did not see the eternal lamp. Could it be that the eternal lamp had been taken away by someone? The future generations cannot become immortals. Without the cultivation of a true immortal, no one can enter this place. Jiang Chen whispered. If he did not have the chaotic aura, he would not have been able to come to the Black River. Then, the idea that the eternal lamp had been taken away by someone else was basically impossible. But the question was, where was the eternal lamp? Could it have been swallowed? After more than 10 breaths had passed, Jiang Chen looked at the vigorous primal chaos energy with an odd expression, and he muttered in confusion. Plop! As soon as he finished speaking, a muffled sound came from the chaotic aura. Then, a very simple and ordinary bronze lamp fell from his body. At this moment, Jiang Chen was really confused. This thing was really the eternal lamp? The eternal lamp that he had been looking for so long was really swallowed by the chaotic aura? After picking up the bronze lamp, Jiang Chen held it in his hand and studied it carefully. But he did not find anything special about it. In fact, this bronze lamp did not even have a wick. If there was no wick, how could it be lit? Is it broken? Jiang Chen said in a low voice. While he was feeling puzzled, some booming sounds suddenly came from under the riverbed. At this moment, the riverbed cracked and a huge stone tablet slowly rose from the bottom of the riverbed. The stone tablet was very complete. There was not a single crack on it. It was snow white and had no trace of impurities. There were a few lines of words written on the stone tablet. Jiang Chen leaned forward to take a look. His heart skipped a beat. Bearing the mandate of heaven, Yang suppressing immortal opportunity. These words revealed a lot of information. Just from the literal meaning, this stone tablet seemed to be suppressing something. Yang suppressing immortal opportunity. Could this stone tablet be suppressing the path to immortality in the Yang world? Jiang Chen was shocked. If that was the case, then the importance of this stone tablet was self-evident. What moved Jiang Chen the most was that the words, myriad transformations, were written at the bottom of the stone tablet. Although Jiang Chen had forgotten the memories of his previous lives, he could not help but suspect that one of his lives was myriad transformations. However, there was too little information about myriad transformations. Jiang Chen had only seen it in the ancient ruins of the godless continent. Oh right! Where is my drop of blood essence? Suddenly, Jiang Chen thought of something. Back in the ancient ruins, he had obtained a drop of myriad transformations blood essence. However, he had gone through so many things that he had almost forgotten about this drop of blood essence. Then, Jiang Chen looked into his body and quickly found this drop of blood essence in the depths of his soul. It floated quietly in the depths of his soul. It was dim and lightless, as if it was covered in dust. Jiangchen injected a drop of divine power into it. Suddenly, the blood essence bloomed with divine light, and a terrifying will erupted from the blood essence. Chapter 1348. His blood essence seemed to be burning, and a terrifying pressure burst out. An indescribable aura filled the air. It was as if there was a king in the blood essence that was about to wake up. It was too terrifying. Jiangchen had never known that the blood essence had such power. However, after a few breaths, the strange scene in the blood essence disappeared. It became dark again as if it was covered with a layer of dust. Then, no matter how Jiangchen tried to activate it, the blood essence did not change at all. What's going on? Did I open it the wrong way? Jiangchen was puzzled. After looking at it carefully, he left the spiritual world. The most important thing now was to find out the secret of the ancient words on the stone tablet. As for the lamp, Jiangchen did not intend to light it up. Not to mention that the lamp did not have a wick now, he did not know what kind of creatures it would attract after it was lit up. I have to read the ancient books. Otherwise, I can't just light it up casually, Jiangchen said softly. Then Jiangchen searched around the Black River again. He didn't find anything special, so he decided to leave. However, when he came in, he relied on the chaotic chi. Now, the chaotic chi was lying on the riverbed as if it was hibernating. It did not move at all. Looking at the road he came from, it was full of the chaotic chi. If there was no chaotic chi to open the way, Jiangchen would not be able to get out. Hey! Can you hear me? I'm leaving. You should get up quickly. Jiangchen picked up a stone and threw it at the wisp of chaotic energy. Bang! However, to his surprise, an explosion came from the primal chaos energy. Then it exploded, and a living creature that looked exactly like Jiangchen appeared in front of him. Without waiting for Jiangchen's response, the creature stood up expressionlessly and walked outside. Jiangchen was startled, and he stared at the creature formed by a wisp of chaotic energy. He couldn't figure out what was going on. However, the creature did not mean him any harm. At that moment, it was leading him back. On the way back, the living being was constantly absorbing the laws of chaos. Moreover, every time it absorbed a strand of the laws of chaos, its aura would grow stronger. When it walked out of the star sea, the aura it exuded had reached that of an upper emperor. What exactly are you? Jiangchen asked. Whoosh! However, this creature did not answer. It turned into a ray of spiritual light and entered Jiangchen's spiritual world. Jiangchen hurriedly looked inside himself, and saw that the living being had shrunk to the size of a palm. At this moment, its eyes were closed as it sat quietly on top of Jiangchen's soul. Oh? Could it be another clone? Jiangchen said softly. Back when Jiangchen fought the feather of the true god, it was because he had a clone formed from chaotic chi that saved his life, allowing him to defeat the feather of the true god. However, after that battle, the clone disappeared and turned back into the primal chaos chi. Who would have thought that the clone would return? However, the clone this time seemed to be different from the previous one. The previous clone clearly did not have any consciousness, and did not have any expression. However, this clone not only had consciousness, it also had a trace of emotion. When it came out of the star sea just now, this clone would look at Jiangchen from time to time when it was devouring the laws of chaos. The disdain in its eyes could not be concealed at all. I say, you won't harm me, right? Jiangchen asked weakly. Everyone in the world can harm you, but I won't. The clone suddenly opened its eyes and looked at Jiangchen as if he was an idiot. It said snappily, Would I harm myself? With that, the clone waved its hand and knocked Jiangchen's consciousness out of the spiritual world. Don't come to the spiritual world for no reason. I'll help you look after this place, the clone said. At this moment, Jiangchen's hair stood on end. I can't enter the spiritual world. Now it's being controlled by a clone. That clone wants to harm me. I say, big brother. This isn't appropriate, is it? This is my spiritual world after all. Jiangchen looked wronged and muttered. Don't act recklessly. Your spiritual world is too messy. I'll help you tidy it up and solve some things in an instant," the clone said. Then, no matter how Jiangchen spoke, the clone no longer paid attention to him. Moreover, this clone seemed to have used some kind of divine ability to isolate Jiangchen from his spiritual world, making it difficult for Jiangchen to sense everything that was happening in his spiritual world. Damn! Jiangchen's face was pitch black and his heart was bitter. However, he couldn't do anything to that clone and could only let him do whatever he wanted. Half a day later, at the black market headquarters, Jiangchen came back, and he went into the depository of Buddhist scriptures of the black market as soon as he could. The black market's scripture pavilion collected all kinds of ancient books, and there was no lack of unique books that recorded secrets. He wanted to find clues about the eternal lamp and unravel the secret of the stone tablet. "Sir, I've found out that the 3 big shots have disappeared. They seem to have gone to war." After another half a day, an old man found Jiangchen and handed him a letter. "This was left behind by the number 1 big shot. I just found it," the old man said. "It's written for you to open it personally." "Oh?" Jiangchen was puzzled and opened the letter. When he saw the contents of the letter, his expression changed instantly. "Don't believe the Supreme Heavenly Palace." Looking at the words on the letter, Jiangchen's heart turned cold. He didn't dare to confirm whether the number 1 big shot was telling the truth or not, but he understood that with the number 1 big shot's identity and strength, there was no need for him to frame the Supreme Heavenly Palace in a roundabout way. "What's going on?" Jiangchen was puzzled. He secretly thought that the Supreme Heavenly Palace had treated him well and had helped him several times before. Not long ago, the Supreme Heavenly Palace had even announced to the world that they would protect Jiangchen. This was openly going against the Hurricane Lily race. Then, since the Supreme Heavenly Palace treated Jiangchen so well, why couldn't Jiangchen believe them? "Do you know about the Supreme Heavenly Palace's situation?" Jiangchen looked at the old man in front of him. This old man had been in the black market for a long time and was considered a trusted aide of the 3 big shots. He knew many secrets. "The Supreme Heavenly Palace has always been very mysterious. I don't know much either," the old man said. "The only thing I know is that everyone in the Supreme Heavenly Palace has very poor talent. But for some reason, those people in the Supreme Heavenly Palace were able to cultivate to the peak in the end, and their talent became even more demonic. Almost all of them have the Supreme Tao fruit." At this point, the old man frowned and muttered, "It's strange. Every time someone from the Supreme Heavenly Palace obtains the Supreme Tao fruit, someone with the Supreme Tao fruit will disappear in the Great Thousand World." Chapter 1349. The Supreme Heavenly Palace was a famous supreme force in the Great Thousand World. Although there weren't many people in this force, each of them had a Supreme Tao fruit. However, the world knew very little about the Supreme Heavenly Palace. Even Jiangchen didn't know much about the Supreme Heavenly Palace. He only knew that this force was very strong and treated him exceptionally well. But at this moment, Jiangchen felt a chill run down his spine, as if he had realized something serious. Could it be that the Supreme Heavenly Palace's Supreme Being was able to possess someone else's Tao fruit to become a Supreme Being? Jiangchen asked. When he said this, the old man's expression was very calm. He raised his head to look at the ceiling of the scripture pavilion and said softly, "Who knows? Could it be that the Supreme Heavenly Palace is so good to me and has been protecting me because they value my Supreme Tao fruit?" Jiangchen was shocked. When he recalled what had happened before, he felt fear in his heart. He began to suspect why the Supreme Heavenly Palace was so good to him. Back then, could it be that Hong Yun was lying to him about those things? Impossible. Tianqin came from the Supreme Heavenly Palace in that life. How could the Supreme Heavenly Palace harm me? Jiangchen was puzzled. If the Supreme Heavenly Palace really wanted to harm him, why would they go through so much trouble? They could have taken action earlier and snatched his Supreme Tao fruit. Could it be that the time isn't right? Jiangchen's mind was in a mess. He felt that this matter was very serious. If he was the slightest bit careless, he might be consigned to eternal damnation. Sir, it's better for you not to think about these things. Now that almost all the transcendent being in the great thousand world have left, with your cultivation and strength, you can be considered to be a tyrant now, the old man said. In addition, your brothers have destroyed the sacred land. Now, it can be said that they have replaced the sacred land's position in the great thousand world. When Jiang Chun heard this, he laughed bitterly and said, So what if they've replaced it? I'm not interested in these things. Perhaps you're really not interested, but what about your brothers? The old man said. Isn't it good to dominate the great thousand world, unify the four directions, rule the world, leave a name for all eternity? Who wouldn't be tempted? To be honest, I'm also tempted, Jiang Chun said honestly. After all, who would want to live a mediocre life? Who didn't want to cause a sensation in the world? Now, this opportunity was right in front of him. Could it be that he had to give up this opportunity? Moreover, if he really controlled the great thousand world, Jiang Chun would have more chances to unlock the ancestral realm and release it. You gather Jiang Lu and the others, I will ask them for their opinion, said Jiang Chun. Jiang Chun could not make this decision alone. After all, once they planned to unify the great thousand world, it meant that they would have to start a war with many forces. There wasn't a single dynasty that wasn't built in the flames of war and blood. Therefore, this matter had to be handled with caution. My lord, please wait here. I will go and gather them. As he turned around, he suddenly said, Your Excellency, the three authorities call me rotten. You can call me that too. Rotten? Okay, then I will call you that from now on. Jiang Chun nodded. Next, Jiang Chun stayed in the hidden scriptures pavilion, flipping through the ancient books, trying to find some clues. It wasn't until 3 days later that Jiang Chun finally found something. In an ancient book, there were some things about the three young realms. It was written that the three young realms and the three yin realms were the worlds closest to the immortal realm. It was also the easiest for the cultivators of the three young realms and the three yin realms to become immortals. However, at some point in time, the path to immortality of the three young realms and the three yin realms was cut off, suppressing the immortal qi of the three young realms. It was also from then on that the three young realms began to fight and chose the great thousand worlds as the battlefield. At first, no one was puzzled. After all, the great thousand worlds happened to be in the middle of the three young realms, so it was reasonable to choose this place as the battlefield. However, after a few battles, the great thousand worlds also received some news. The reason why the people of the three young realms chose the great thousand worlds as the battlefield was not to destroy the other side, but to find something in the great thousand worlds. It was said that this thing could reopen the path to immortality of the three young realms. It can't be. Under the Qinghai Black River, that stone tablet suppressed the immortal qi of the three young realms? Jiang Chun was shocked. If what was recorded in the ancient book was true, then that stone tablet was too important. If the path to immortality of the three young realms is suppressed, then the path to immortality of the three yin realms should also be suppressed, right? Jiang Chun muttered. If it was as he guessed, then where was the stone tablet that suppressed the three yin realms? Chaotic qi? After another half a day, Jiang Chun found some information about the chaotic qi in an ancient book. It was recorded that the chaotic qi had existed since the beginning of the world. This force was very powerful and very pure. It could be said that it was the foundation of all things in the world. Since the appearance of the living beings in the world, it was equivalent to leaving the chaotic qi. Impurities appeared in their bodies, so the living beings in the world could not control the chaotic qi. Someone once came to the conclusion that the end of cultivation was to get rid of all the impurities in one's body and return to the beginning of the chaotic qi. The end of cultivation is chaos. Jiang Chun muttered softly. He continued reading until he saw such a line of words in the end. The chaotic qi has a spirit and can recognize its master. With this line of words, Jiang Chun's heart trembled. He could not enter the spiritual world, but he was trying to communicate with the three strands of chaotic qi. By the way, I'm your master? Jiangchen said softly. He knew that the 3 strands of chaotic chi could hear him. Isn't that nonsense? If we don't recognize you as our master, why should we help you? Kid, you're so careless. It took you so long to realize it. You've been guarding against us for harming you. After a few breaths, the 3 strands of chaotic chi spoke one after another, criticizing Jiangchen. Jiangchen looked embarrassed. He thought to himself that he had really misunderstood these 3 strands of chaotic chi. By the way, why do you want to imprison the lantern bearer? Jiangchen asked. He had always been puzzled about this matter. You don't really think that the lantern bearer is something that was born after the myriad transformations heavenly lamp evolved, do you? One of the strands of chaotic chi said angrily. You're really stupid. Since ancient times, everyone knows that the myriad transformations heavenly lamp can't evolve. The lantern bearer in your body is just a set of coordinates that someone left in your body for some reason. The lantern bearer can control the myriad transformations heavenly lamp and hold the green lamp. This is to guide some terrifying and unknown living beings back. The 3 strands of chaotic chi explained, but they could not tell who the lantern bearer was going to guide back. However, they had a feeling that they absolutely could not let the lantern bearer guide those living beings back. Otherwise, something big would happen. Chapter 1350. Jiangchen had always thought that the lamp bearer appeared because of the advancement of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp, but who would have thought that this thing was not the case at all? If not for these 3 wisps of chaotic aura telling him, Jiangchen would still be in the dark. However, Jiangchen was also very puzzled. Since the lamp bearer was not a product of the myriad transformations heavenly lamp's advancement, nor was it his own, then how could he control the lamp bearer? The lamp bearer is just a consciousness that can be controlled by anyone, the chaotic aura said. However, the original purpose of his existence is to guide certain existences back. Can this thing completely destroy it? Jiangchen asked. It can't be destroyed. The cultivation of the living being who left behind such a consciousness is extremely terrifying. Unless our strength surpasses his, this lamp bearer can only be imprisoned and can't be destroyed, the chaotic aura said. Jiangchen was shocked when he heard this. He could feel that the 3 wisps of chaotic aura were very powerful, comparable to peak emperors. Moreover, because of the extraordinary nature of the chaotic aura, their combat strength was probably comparable to extraordinary beings. However, such strength was unable to destroy the lamp bearer. Then, how terrifying was the cultivation of the person who left behind the will of the lamp bearer? Was he an immortal? There are too many things in your soul and it's too messy. Let me help you clean them up. The chaotic aura that had turned into a clone said. You don't use the best things. They're all covered in dust in your soul. What things? Jiangchen was puzzled. This drop of blood essence, the clone said. Do you know whose blood essence this is? It's the blood essence of myriad transformations. After you obtained it, you actually kept it in your soul world and didn't touch it at all. You're really ruining heaven's treasure. How do I use this thing? Jiangchen asked with a confused expression. This? I don't know, but this blood essence should contain some kind of inheritance, or even some memory fragments, the clone said. Whoever started the trouble should end it. This blood essence is yours. If you want to undo the power of this blood essence, you can only do it yourself. Jiangchen's face darkened when he heard this. He couldn't even enter the soul world now, so how could he comprehend the mysteries of this blood essence? Boss? Boss, are you there? At this moment, the voices of Jianglu and the others came from outside the scripture pavilion. Jiangchen walked out and saw that Jianglu and the others were all safe and sound. Boss, why did you suddenly leave? What were you going to do? Jianglu asked. I made a trip to the ancestral land of the spider lilies. Jiangchen smiled. Fortunately, I was fine. Didn't I come back alive? The ancestral land of the red spider lilies. Boss, if you want to do anything in the future, you should discuss it with us in advance. We were very worried about you leaving so suddenly. The group of people spoke angrily, feeling extremely dissatisfied. Jiang Chun burst out laughing. He didn't dwell on this matter any longer. Then, he called everyone into the main hall. His expression turned serious as he said, "The Holy Land was destroyed by you. You can be said to have replaced the Holy Land?" "Boss, it's strange. When we went to the Holy Land, there wasn't a single extraordinaire in the entire place." "That's right, and there are obvious signs of fighting outside the Holy Land." Everyone was puzzled. Jiang Chun laughed and said, "I've been there before." "Boss, you're not the extraordinaire who destroyed the Holy Land, are you?" Jiang Le's eyes widened. He felt that his guess was not far from the truth. Jiang Chun nodded, then waved his hand and said, "Let's talk about business first. The Holy Land has been replaced by you. Now, the extraordinaires of the major forces have basically left. Now, the Great Thousand World can be said to be without a master," Jiang Chun said and looked at everyone meaningfully. "Do you have any ideas?" As soon as these words came out, Wakako was the first to stand up. His domineering aura erupted. He raised his eyebrows and said, "What else can we think? Of course, we're going to establish a dynasty and dominate the Great Thousand World. Isn't the purpose of living for fame and fortune? Eternal prosperity. As long as we unify the Great Thousand World, the day of breaking the seal and curse of the ancestral realm won't be far away." They spoke one after another. Obviously, they had thought about it before. Jiang Chun nodded. He also had the same idea. However, one had to know that dominating the Great Thousand World was not an easy task. Especially now, although the major forces were much more low-key, one had to admit that they were powerful. For example, the Red Spider Lily clan had a terrifying foundation. How could they watch Jiang Chun and the others dominate the Great Thousand World? Although the Supreme Heavenly Palace was restraining the Red Spider Lily clan, Jiang Chun did not really trust the Supreme Heavenly Palace now. "Boss, this matter is very simple. Whoever is not convinced, will beat them until they're convinced." "That's right. This is a world where strength speaks. As long as we are strong enough, why can't we unify the Great Thousand World?" Wakako was very excited. He had always been like this, domineering in his heart. As for the others, they did not say anything, but their thoughts were basically similar to Wakako's. "Why don't we test the attitude of the major forces in the Great Thousand World first?" Jiang Chun said softly. "Let's take a look at the situation first. If the situation is too bad, then we'll have to carefully consider the matter of unifying the Great Thousand World." "Boss, what do you plan to do?" Shao Qing asked. "Invite the leaders of the major forces to attend the meeting and ask for their opinions," Jiang Chun said. "Hold a grand event." "All right. Let's find out their background first." In the end, everyone decided to hold a grand event in the black market. Jiang Chun asked Rotten to handle this matter. In the next few days, everyone was in the black market. They either cultivated or chatted. Their days were quite comfortable. However, to Jiang Chun, these days were a little uncomfortable. Ever since the accident last time, when he did that with Ninth Heaven, this little girl was about to ascend to heaven. Over the past few days, the Nine Heavens had been trying to seduce Jiang Chun from time to time, especially in front of Bai Fingyu and others. This little girl was very happy. Bai Fingyu and Nayland Mayer's faces darkened. As the first and second disciples, they had not succeeded yet. Master. On this day, Bai Fingyu and Nayland Mayer came. Their eyes were soft and gentle as they looked at Jiang Chun with resentment. Jiang Chun's body went numb. He braced himself and asked, "What's the matter?" "It's nothing, it's just..." Bai Fingyu blushed and was too embarrassed to say it. On the other hand, Nayland Mayer was much more direct. She sat on Jiang Chun's bed and said, "Master, let's do it." Jiang Chun felt a headache. What kind of world was this? These disciples, other than wanting to sleep with him, couldn't they have any other thoughts? "Boss, the leaders of the major forces are basically all here." At this moment, the simple-minded Jiang Lu walked in. When he saw Bai Fingyu and Nayland Mayer sitting on the bed, he said straightforwardly, "You guys can wait first. Chapter 1351. Bai Fingyu and Naylan Mayer had no temper at all in front of the silly Jianglu. If it were anyone else who saw this scene, they would naturally turn around and leave, pretending that they did not see anything. But for Jianglu, forget it, it was better not to mention it. What a good brother! Jiang Chen walked to Jianglu's side and patted him on the shoulder. It's all thanks to you. Then Jiang Chen left in a hurry. He didn't even stay for a second. Jianglu was dumbfounded. He did not understand what his boss meant. He followed Jiang Chen out, and soon arrived outside the main hall of the black market. Don't think that you can replace the Holy Land just because you destroyed it. Not all the extraordinaires in this world have left. Some of them are still here. A few brats from the 6 realms want to control the great wide world? Dream on. We will never agree. When Jiang Chen arrived at the entrance of the main hall, he heard a lot of noise coming from inside. Boss, they are not convinced. Jianglu's face darkened, and killing intent exploded in his eyes. To Jianglu, it was not important for him to be wronged, but if someone dared to be disrespectful to Jiang Chen, then this matter would not be settled peacefully. It's fine. Let's listen a little more, Jiang Chen said softly. He had already expected this scene. However, Jiang Chen was not worried. He knew better than anyone that since the leaders of these forces had come, they must be afraid of them. If they were not afraid of them, they would not have come. Bang! However, before Jiang Chen could continue listening, he heard a muffled sound coming from inside. Then, he saw a half-step extraordinaire old man flying out. Blood splattered along the way until he landed outside the main hall. His body exploded, leaving only his soul behind. At the same time, Wakako's voice came from inside the main hall. How dare you! Do you want to die? Then, Xiao Qingyi's voice came. What? If you're not convinced, then you want to fight? After a few breaths, Beta Heiki's voice rang out. She said coldly, We don't care if you submit or not. You have to submit even if you don't. When Jiang Chen heard these words, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. With these guys together, this matter was going to get bigger and bigger. Everyone, if there's anything, we can discuss it. There's no need to fight. At this moment, Jiang Chen walked in with a smile on his face. He clasped his hands together as a sign of respect towards the leader of the faction. Are you blind? Who the F***ck did it? It's your brothers who did it. We didn't do anything. There were more than 30 lords of forces in the hall. When they had heard what Jiang Chen had said, they all turned green with fright. Attack? How would they dare? This was the headquarters of the black market. Even if they were given 10 guts, they wouldn't dare to make a move here. Moreover, there was not a single extraordinaire among the people who came here this time. As for the emperors, Wakako and the others were the strongest group of emperors in the world. How could they make a move in front of this group of people? Did they dare to make a move? Everyone, I've called you here today to discuss an important matter. Jiang Chen ignored these people and slowly sat down at the front of the hall. Beside him stood Wakako and the others, looking very intimidating. Those of us from the 6 realms, in the end, belong to the ancestral realm. Jiang Chen said slowly. The ancestral realm is also considered a part of the greater thousand world. Therefore, we're all family. When everyone heard this, they rolled their eyes. After all, what Jiang Chen had said was true. But it felt a little strange. Since we're all family, I'll be straightforward. Jiang Chen paused for a moment, and his aura erupted. Although his cultivation was not high, the aura he exuded was comparable to that of an emperor. Little brat! Hurry up and say what you want to say! Don't show your aura to scare us. We won't fall for it. When we're reigning over the greater thousand world, you might still be playing with mud in the 6 realms. At this moment, some of the lords of the forces flew into a rage. They didn't show any respect to Jiang Chen at all. Hearing this, Jiang Chen smiled and nodded at Wakako, Jianglu, and the others. Then, he closed his eyes. The next moment, Wakako, Jianglu, and Xiao Qingyi stepped out and each of them punched out, sending all the people who were mentioned flying. Everyone, I like to convince people with virtue. Don't force me to convince people with force. Jiangchen narrowed his eyes and said, You like to convince people with virtue? They just said one sentence, and you sent them flying? What a good way to convince people with virtue! Many people were cursing Jiangchen inwardly, but a smile appeared on their faces. They were all smiling flatteringly, but they didn't refute Jiangchen openly. The greater thousand world is vast and the forces are complicated. If no one stands up to preside over the overall situation, the greater thousand world will definitely be in chaos. After a few breaths, Jiangchen spoke again. He slowly stood up, pointed at himself, and pointed at the people around him, and said, I'm willing to take on this responsibility to maintain the peace of the greater thousand world. Shameless! Simply shameless! The group of people cursed in their hearts, but no one said anything. After all, Jianglu and the others were simply too intimidating. However, the thing that these people were most afraid of was not Jiangchen and the others, but the old man standing below Jiangchen, the rotten man. When several leaders looked at the rotten man, their expressions were strange, and there was fear in the depths of their eyes. They recognized the rotten man's identity. He was a prehistoric almighty. In some ancient ruins and even in some portraits, the rotten man's figure could be seen. However, what they found hard to understand was why a prehistoric almighty was willing to work for the black market and listen to Jiangchen's words. This was not appropriate, right? Then, here's the main point. Do you agree? After a few breaths, Jiangchen's eyes shone brightly. With a wave of his hand, the array that had been set up long ago rose up. At this moment, the group of leaders was dumbfounded, and they began to curse Jiangchen in their hearts again. King ask us if we agree? With such a lineup, how could we not agree? How could we not agree? King convince people with virtue? I'd be a fool to believe you. Since you destroyed the sacred land, it's only natural that you inherit the position of the sacred land. Yes. Now there are less than 1/10 of the greater thousand worlds extraordinaries left, and we've seen your strength. You can indeed rule the greater thousand world. The group of leaders said against their will. They had to squeeze out a smile on their faces to avoid being beaten up by Jianglu and the others. Well, if you agree, then sign this agreement. Jiangchen smiled and took out a silk letter that was more than 10 meters long. After you sign, it'll be considered that you've acknowledged us. At that time, I'll announce it to the world. F***CK. You've been F***King prepared for this? That means, whether we come today or not, you want to rule the greater thousand world? Chapter 1352. The alliance contract couldn't be signed casually. After all of the people here were leaders of influential forces. Once they signed it, Jiangchen would announce it to the world. It meant these forces would all belong to Jiangchen. At that time, even if these factions wanted to rebel, they would be cursed for eternity. What these top factions cared about the most was face and reputation. Isn't this a little too rushed? We're here today to discuss, not to sign an alliance agreement. A few people frowned, obviously unwilling to sign this alliance agreement. In this regard, Jiangchen did not force them. With a smile on his face, he said, Everyone, I won't force you. If you want to sign, then sign. If you don't, then leave. After saying that, Jiangchen paused for a moment, and then his expression became serious. If you don't sign and walk out of this door, then it's hard to say whether you'll be an enemy or a friend in the future. Jiangchen, there are so many factions in the world. Do you really think that you can unify the world with just a few people? Humph! I won't sign today. After walking out of this door, I don't care whether I'll be an enemy or a friend in the future. At this moment, 6 faction leaders stood up with cold expressions. After saying a few words, they directly left. This time, Jiangchen did not stop them, and Jianglu and the others did not make a move. They just let them go. The remaining group of people stayed where they were, hesitating. After all, no one wanted to be a subordinate. However, this era was different. Almost all the extraordinaries had left. Jiang Chen's group was undoubtedly the strongest in this world. As for top existences like the Red Spider Lily, they naturally would not participate in this matter. After all, for the Red Spider Lily, no matter who rose or fell in this world, it would be difficult to shake them. Maybe we can take a gamble. What if this guy really dominates the world? If he does, then we'll be the first to eat meat and drink soup. With his personality, he shouldn't treat us unfairly. After a dozen breaths, 3 faction leaders hardened their hearts and decided to sign the alliance agreement. They were very clearly aware that in this era, a storm was brewing and undercurrents were surging. If they didn't struggle and gamble, then who knew who would reign supreme in the world tomorrow? The 3 of you, aren't you afraid of regretting signing the alliance contract so hastily? How ignorant! They only have a few people, and they think they can dominate the great thousand world? Some people were still hesitating. At this moment, they were even mocking and ridiculing the 3 people. The 3 lords didn't pay any attention to him. Instead, they cupped their hands before Jiangchen to salute him respectfully. Oh? So the 3 of you come from the same source, Jiangchen said with a smile. He looked at the names of the 3 forces on the contract. They were the Sun, Moon, and Star sects. Our 3 forces were originally the same sect in prehistoric times. Later on, due to some matters, we split up. In our generation, we want to unite the 3 forces. I hope that we can make use of this opportunity to rebuild the reputation of the Heaven and Earth sect. The Sun, Moon, and Star sects were known as the Heaven and Earth sect in prehistoric times. Later on, after a series of chaos, they split up into the Sun, Moon, and Star sects. And now, these 3 forces wanted to take a gamble. If they succeeded, the 3 sects would definitely be able to shine brightly in the great thousand world. It's fine if we don't sign it. Jiangchen, I've thought about it. This alliance agreement really can't be signed. Goodbye. After another dozen breaths, a few more people left. Jiangchen still did not stop them. However, not long after they left, 3 horrifying evil auras exploded from the sky and descended into the main hall. Upon closer inspection, the 3 of them were of the evil race. Furthermore, their cultivation bases were unfathomable, far surpassing that of extraordinary beings. This was especially so for their bodies. Not only were there horrifying evil auras, there were even wisps of immortal chi. Yo, rotten one? To think that after so many years, I'd still be able to see you. At this moment, the 3 patriarchs from the evil race looked at Rotten One in surprise. Obviously, they knew him. Rotten One was also stunned for a moment. Looking at the 3 patriarchs, he frowned and said, "Good people don't live long. Scourges live for thousands of years. What are you saying? Don't you have any shame? Did you kill fewer people than us in prehistoric times?" "That's right. How shameless," the 3 patriarchs said unhappily. After a round of sarcastic banter, their gazes landed on Jiangchen. "Kid, I'll be frank with you. The evil race supports you. As long as you don't forget about us, the evil race will always help you," the ancestors of the 3 evil races said seriously. They had come here this day to help Jiangchen and to intimidate the lords of these forces. At this moment, the faces of the leaders who were still in the main hall darkened. They were not stupid. Their eyes were sharp. The cultivation of these 3 patriarchs was half a step away from becoming immortals. Such figures, not to mention now, even in the past, were giants who dominated a region. "Thank you, evil race." Jiangchen smiled, but there was no ripple or surprise in his heart. Before the start of this event, Jiangchen had expected the evil race to return. After all, there was a strange substance in the evil race's body that needed to be purified with Jiangchen's blood essence. "I think we can sign an alliance agreement. With these 3 patriarchs, this alliance agreement can be set." At this moment, the 4 leaders made a decision and signed the alliance agreement one after another. However, there were still some people who were still hesitating. After all, the great wide world was too big. Who knew if there were still powerhouses? With just these 3 evil race ancestors, they really might not be able to suppress the boundless universe. Jiangchen, you killed my Red Spider Lily clan's clansman. Do you admit to this crime? Suddenly, the sky above the black market darkened, and then a huge red spider lily bloomed. In the middle of the red spider lily, an old man with white hair and a youthful face stood tall. His eyes were bright, and the universe turned into mountains and rivers, trembling under his feet. His attitude was very tough, and his aura was extremely terrifying. After coming here, he questioned him face to face. I killed Inqing-san, and I also killed Inqing-tian. So what? Jiangchen raised his eyebrows and walked out of the main hall. He looked up at the Red Spider Lily clan's elder and asked, What? You want me to pay with my life? Today, since this old man has come, then you will die. The light on the old man's body dissipated, revealing his true appearance. It was Enchi. F*ck. Enchi. This old man. He was a ruthless character in prehistory. I didn't expect him to still be alive, and in the same condition as before. The three patriarchs were shocked. They were all creatures of the same era and knew how terrifying Enchi was. At this moment, the three patriarchs were stunned. For a moment, they hesitated whether to fight against Enchi. Enchi, long time no see. Just as the three of them were hesitating, the rotten man suddenly took a step forward and soared into the air, quickly arriving in front of Enchi. Chapter 1353. Enchi came with an unyielding attitude, and her intentions were clear. She was here to kill Jiangchen. While the three evil race patriarchs were hesitating, no one expected the rotten to step forward. One had to know that the aura he exuded was inferior to the three evil race patriarchs. But he dared to face Enchi directly. The most surprising thing was that the moment Enchi saw the rotten, her pupils constricted as if she had seen something incredible. You're not dead! Enchi's expression was grave, and her voice was much lower. The rotten stroked his beard and smiled. You're not dead either. I didn't expect you to be hiding in the black market, Enchi said in a low voice. With your cultivation and identity, are you willing to work like a horse for the black market? Are you willing to sit under that kid? Why not? The rotten raised his eyebrows. The rotten are old, and the old are rotten. Times are changing, and our era is over. It's time to give the opportunity to the young. With that, the rotten pointed at the sky meaningfully. Even the heavens are changing, let alone us. You admit defeat? Enchi frowned. As soon as this was said, the group of people below was a little confused. The fight hadn't even started yet, and the rotten had admitted defeat? Then why did he go up? But there were also a few people who frowned as if they knew what Enchi meant. The rotten didn't admit defeat to Enchi. An evil race patriarch explained. His admission of defeat wasn't targeted at a person, then, could it be directed at the heavens? Everyone reacted quickly, and a storm was set off in their hearts. Admitting defeat to the heavens? Could it be that the rotten had been fighting against the heavens? Fighting against the heavens? Even a perfected immortal wouldn't dare, right? Jiangchen muttered. In this world, especially in prehistory, perfected immortals were the strongest. However, even a perfected immortal wouldn't dare to fight against the heavens. The heavens were invisible, but they had intentions. The will of the heavens could not be defied. How could the living beings of this world fight against the heavens? But now, after hearing Enchi's words, everyone thought of many things and became even more curious about the rotten's identity. What kind of person was the rotten in prehistory? Not only would Enchi fear him, he would even dare to go against the heavens. It's time to admit defeat. After all, it's been so many years and I still haven't passed that hurdle. The rotten man sighed. You should leave. I haven't fought in a long time, and I don't want to. Enchi is one of the ancestors of the Paramitha flower clan. He was already famous in prehistoric times and dared to fight against the master of the heavenly court. How can a rotten person make such a person retreat with just a few words? Rotten one! Aren't you being too arrogant? No one was convinced. They felt that Duja was being too arrogant. However, To everyone's surprise, after she heard this, he hesitated and asked, "Today, I can't kill Jiangchen? With me here, you won't be able to kill him." The rotten man nodded. Hearing this, and she didn't say anything else, and actually turned to leave. At this moment, exclamations sounded from all around. Even the three evil race ancestors were dumbfounded. They also knew Rotten from prehistoric times, but they never expected Rotten to be able to persuade Chi to retreat with just one sentence. Could it be that this old guy is still hiding something from us? Rotten 1. This guy is unfathomable. The three evil race ancestors were shocked. At this moment, they finally understood that this seemingly old person who was willing to work in the black market was definitely not simple. "We're willing to sign the contract. Quickly bring the contract over. I'll sign it now." At this moment, the remaining faction leaders were anxious. They were still hesitating before. Even when the three evil race ancestors came, they were still hesitating. But now, they didn't hesitate anymore. This was because the rotten man was too mysterious. Although he didn't make a move, everyone could see that he was very strong. With such a thigh, these faction leaders weren't fools. How could they not hug him tightly? "Everyone will be family from now on. If there's any trouble, we'll help each other." Jiangchen smiled and then looked at the rotten man who had returned to his side. He couldn't hold back his curiosity and asked, "Rotten 1, what's your cultivation level?" "Me?" The rotten man was stunned for a moment. It seemed that no one had asked him this question for several generations. He couldn't answer for a moment. "What else could it be?" "Of course, it's the same as us, half-step to immortality." "That's right. I remember very clearly that the rotten man didn't become an immortal in prehistoric times. In today's environment, it's impossible for all living things to become immortals. The rotten man's cultivation level should be the same as ours," the three evil race ancestors said, but they still looked at the rotten man suspiciously. Rotten nodded with a smile and said, "It should be half a step away from becoming an immortal." "It should be?" Jiangchen was a little confused. He secretly thought that the rotten man had lived for so long that he even forgot his own cultivation level. "Boss, it's all signed. When will we announce it to the world?" Not long after, Jianglu came over with the contract and asked expectantly. After all, as long as they announced it to the world and made the contract public, they would be in control of the Great Thousand World. Of course, that couldn't be considered true control. After all, there would definitely be objections. "We'll announce it to the world tomorrow. At that time, everyone should be prepared for battle," Jiangchen reminded. "The Great Thousand World is so big. There will definitely be forces that won't accept it. Many forces will even join forces to fight us. A great battle is inevitable. Sorry for the wait." Wakako narrowed his eyes and revealed his domineering aura. "We'll decide the world with a battle. We'll be done with the battle." In the end, the leaders of the major forces left, but the three evil race ancestors stayed behind to guard the black market. Of course, their main purpose was to stay by Jiangchen's side and get more of Jiangchen's essence and blood. "Boss, since we're going to rule the Great Thousand World, we must have a name." Xiao Qingyu walked over and said softly, "We're considered a major force, but we haven't named it yet." Upon hearing this, Jiangchen frowned slightly. After thinking for a while, he said, "In the end, we are all from the ancestral realm, and we are its people. How about we call it the Ancestral Court? We'll listen to you, boss." "Ancestral Court? The Ancestral Realm's Holy Court." "Okay." Time passed. The next day, Jiangchen sent people from the black market to announce this matter to the world. He was truly waving the flag. Not long after, in less than 30 minutes, a top force in the southern region of the Great Thousand World announced that they would never recognize the Ancestral Court's position in the Great Thousand World. Not long after, forces from all over the Great Thousand World announced this. Half a day later, as Jiangchen had said before, these forces had formed an alliance to overthrow the Ancestral Court. The first battle after the establishment of the Ancestral Court, everyone, is about to begin. Jiang Chen's expression was solemn, and his eyes burned with fighting spirit. Are you all ready? Chapter 1354. The establishment of the ancestral court temporarily used the black market headquarters as the mountain gate, waving the flag and announcing to the world. All the major starfields had forces resisting. In just half a day, some forces had formed an alliance and sent their top powerhouses toward the black market headquarters. Wakako, you guard the south of the black market with Sun Zone. Jianlu, you and Yu Zone guard the north. Shao Qingyi, you and Xing Zone guard the west. You female disciples guard the east. Jiang Chen's decision-making speed was very fast. He even called over the powerhouses of the forces that had submitted to him in the shortest time possible. After he assigned the tasks, he stood quietly at the entrance of the black market hall with the Rotten Man and the other leaders. The most important thing in a battle is not how many people are killed, but how many leaders are killed, Jiang Chen said in a deep voice. We will wait here. I believe that the strongest powerhouses of those forces will come here. If we win this battle, the ancestral court's position in the great wide world will be stable. Since we have already submitted to the ancestral court, we will definitely live and die with it. The leaders of the major forces were also determined. Today, the ancestral court would either rise or be destroyed. As for them, it could be said that they had put their lives on the line. I'll go first. After half an incense stick's time, the Rotten Man's expression froze. He looked to the south, and a hint of killing intent flashed in his eyes. He left directly without telling Jiang Chen and the others why he had left. But everyone knew that the Rotten Man must have sensed the arrival of the supreme powerhouses. The first battle of this battle was the Rotten Man. Senior Rotten Man should be fine, right? What problem can there be? He can force and cheat to retreat with a single sentence. How many people in this world can contend with Senior Rotten Man? The leaders of the major forces were very confident in the Rotten Man. Even Jiang Chen thought that there would be no problem with the Rotten Man in this battle. After another half an incense stick's time, the three evil race patriarchs' expressions froze, and they rushed to the east and west respectively. Obviously, they had also sensed the arrival of the supreme powerhouses. And those supreme powerhouses were not people that Jiang Chen and the others could deal with. There are so many top forces in the great wide world. Do we have enough people? One of the leaders asked softly. One had to know that the four strongest people in Ancestral Court had all come out to fight. Now, the only ones left were the emperors. Number of people? Jiang Chen whispered. The corner of his lips curled up with a hint of arrogance. When have we ever lost in terms of numbers? This? What do you mean? Our strongest four have already joined the battle. If a few more extraordinaires come, we won't be able to handle them. It was natural that some people were worried and felt guilty. However, Jiang Chen was already prepared. A few breaths later, a five-clawed golden dragon suddenly appeared in the sky above the black market's main hall. The dragon's aura was vast and mighty, and the golden light from its body shone in all directions like the sun. Then, a vermilion bird descended. Its blazing flame seemed as if it wanted to burn everything down. After a few breaths of time, a phoenix let out a long cry, and a few emperors of the phoenix race also arrived. Boss, I'm not too late, right? Hey! In today's battle, we'll make our great virtue famous. Yes. In today's battle, kill the men and leave the women alive. I, Huang Dade, want to give birth to a race. The four great virtues came. They went to their respective races to call for powerhouses and even invited a few extraordinaires. As for the emperors, almost all of them came. However, in such a tense atmosphere, the words that these great virtues said did not match the scene. This world is going to return to one? How many years has it been? There hasn't been such a big commotion. I didn't expect that once Ancestral Court appeared, the world would be in an uproar. If Ancestral Court wins, they can take control of the great wide world, and the ancestral realm might come back because of this. In all parts of the world, people were studying the current situation, But not many people were optimistic about Ancestral Court. After all, Ancestral Court had only been established for a day, and it was about to usher in an unprecedented battle. Moreover, the difference in numbers between the two sides was too great. Even with the support of the evil race and a few demons, there were still not many people in Ancestral Court. The number of people who rebelled against Ancestral Court was definitely more than 10,000. Moreover, among these 10,000 people, the lowest cultivation base was at the Emperor level. Just like the Ancestral Realm back then, no matter how strong you are, you can't defeat the enemies of the world. What's the use of being strong alone? What's the use of being strong with a few people? With so many people fighting you, you can be dragged to death. At this moment, an explosion came from the south of the black market. Then, an extremely violent domineering aura rose, and one could hear Wakako's violent roar. The battle has begun. I hope we can hold on. Jiang Chun and the others whispered, their expressions tense. They all knew very well that the key to determining the outcome of this battle was not in the four directions, but in the battle in the Black Market Hall. Anyone who dared to come here to fight was basically a faction leader. As long as these faction leaders were destroyed, this battle would be considered a victory. However, the premise was that before the battle in the Black Market Hall ended, Wakako and the others could hold on and not die. What Ancestral Court? Back then, the Ancestral Realm was destroyed and cursed by us. You're just a mere Ancestral Court, and you still want to dominate the upper-class world. Jiang Qin, you're too naive! Half an hour later, the void above the Black Market Hall split open, and dozens of figures stood in the void. The aura of a superior emperor erupted, and an extraordinary stood at the front. They're here. There's actually an extraordinary. Fortunately, there's only one. Everyone was shocked. They looked up at the group of living beings in the void, and fighting spirit erupted in their eyes. There's no need to say anything more. Today's battle is over! Jiang Qin shouted softly. With a wave of his hand, all the faction leaders beside him moved out. As the court master of Ancestral Court, Jiang Qin naturally had to face the strongest among that group of people. I'm a divine emperor. You shouldn't be at a disadvantage when fighting with an extraordinary like you, right? Jiang Qin stood on the spot and narrowed his eyes at the extraordinary. He teased, "But do you think you have a chance of winning? What a joke! The gap between realms is like a chasm that is difficult to cross. You're just a divine emperor, how can you fight with me?" The extraordinary was very confident. As soon as he finished speaking, he pointed out a finger. It was as if an ancient stone pillar had fallen, directly suppressing the Black Market Hall. Smoke and dust rose everywhere, and terrifying laws were rampant. However, amidst the dust, Jiang Qin stood there with a faint smile on his face, unharmed. "That's it," Jiang Qin said softly. His figure flashed and arrived in the air, standing on par with the extraordinary. In the next moment, there was a series of explosions coming from Jiang Qin's body. Chaotic energy erupted, and 3 Tao souls appeared beside him like the sun, moon, and stars. Chapter 1355. The 3 Tao souls appeared at the same time, and their radiance filled the entire area. Starting from his side, it spread all the way. The laws and order were like dragons swimming in the void. Every move he made seemed to have the aura of a king. If I say you can't do it, you can't do it. The world is so big that it's not something a mere god emperor like you can control. The extraordinaire was very domineering and very confident. As he spoke, he raised his hand and waved it down. Like a long spear, it pierced through the void. A fist print with the power of laws came crashing down on Jiang Qin. "That's it," Jiang Qin said softly. Without moving, the 3 Tao souls vibrated. The Emperor's vine stretched out, and its branches and leaves covered the sky. It really had the aura of a world tree. The vines were burning with inextinguishable flames, and a vermilion bird stood there. With a long cry, flames filled the sky and turned the area into a sea of fire. In the depths of the sea of fire, a green lamp burned leisurely. The light was not very strong, but it gave people a feeling that it could melt everything. The extraordinary's fist radiance could not even get close to Jiangchen before it was destroyed by the power of the three Tao souls. Then, the vermilion bird let out a long cry and rushed out. As it flapped its wings, there seemed to be a burst of sword light. Chi! Chi! With the sound of the air being torn apart, the flames in the sky turned into sharp blades. They tore through the void and rushed to the extraordinary in an instant. Child's play! This extraordinary human was very strong, and he was extremely confident in himself. He raised his hand again, and a Tai Chi suddenly appeared in his palm. The Tai Chi separated yin and yang, and it seemed to separate this part of the world. It destroyed the sharp blades in the sky. Then, his palm continued to reach out, and went straight for the undying bird. You're just a mortal! The undying bird let out a long cry. Its sharp claws grabbed an emperor's vine and whipped it toward the extraordinary's palm. Boom! In the next moment, with a loud explosion, the emperor vine exploded. At the same time, the flames in the sky dissipated, and even the undying bird was sent flying. However, his opponent's body was shattered and even his soul was dim. There was even a sword-like emperor's vine above his soul that had nailed him to the void. I am a transcendent! The transcendent great Tao is not something you can bully! The supernatural being roared angrily. His soul trembled as he tried to shake off the emperor vine. However, before the emperor's vine could be shaken off, a wisp of green flames slowly attacked and touched his soul. Chi! In a few breaths of time, the extraordinaire did not even have the chance to scream before he was reduced to ashes on the spot. Not even a wisp of ash was left. I don't even need to do anything myself. Jiangchen pursed his lips and looked around. The battle was still going on. However, Jiangchen didn't help. He knew that this was just the beginning. There were so many top forces in the great wide world, and their foundations were very deep. There should be a few extraordinaires. As the court master of the ancestral court, Jiangchen naturally had to face those extraordinaires. As the saying goes, it's better to kill a general than to kill a soldier, and it's better to kill a king than to kill a general. Jiangchen whispered. I've just become a king. There should be many people who want to take my life, right? Of course. Suddenly, the sound of something breaking through the air rang out. The space around Jiangchen was filled with a layer of frost, and even his three Tao souls were frozen. Jiangchen was shocked. The divine power in his body burst out and turned into flames, trying to melt the layer of frost. However, the person who attacked this time was very fast and sinister. The moment Jiangchen was frozen, he rushed out of the void and pointed at the space between Jiangchen's eyebrows. In an instant, an extremely cold force erupted as if it wanted to freeze everything. The power of Yin! Jiangchen narrowed his eyes. His body couldn't move, and he could only take this finger head on. Puff! Under this finger, Jiangchen was sent flying. The blood in his body froze, and even his divine power was frozen. However, if one looked carefully, there was no wound between Jiangchen's eyebrows. Moreover, the blood and divine power in his body were also recovering at this moment. A wisp of chaotic aura swam above Jiangchen's head like a dragon. It was this chaotic aura that blocked the man's finger. Sneak attack? Assassination? I'm afraid you don't know what's good for you. Jiangchen's eyes were cold. After saying this, his figure disappeared on the spot. His aura was completely gone, as if he had disappeared into thin air. Even an extraordinaire couldn't detect his trace. Puff! After a few breaths, just as that person was panicking, a muffled sound came from behind him. He looked down in a daze and saw a palm piercing through his back. The divine power and nomological order in the palm shattered his physical body. Then, a purple gold vine descended from the sky and split his soul. I've been fighting with Mu Xingyan my whole life. Even his assassination skills couldn't do anything to me, let alone your lousy assassination skills, Jiangchen said disdainfully. After saying this, Jiangchen looked at that person's gradually dimming soul with a faint smile and said, I'm proficient in all professions. Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the man's soul exploded, and he died. After killing this person, Jiang Qin didn't dare to be careless. He knew that there might be many extraordinaires lurking around, waiting for him to reveal a flaw. At this moment, Jiang Qin formed a seal with both hands, and array patterns fell. Some appeared in the air, some jumped around him, and some hid in the void. Everyone, since you're here, why don't you attack? Do you want to wait for me to finish setting up the array before you attack? By then, you won't have a chance to kill me, Jiang Qin said mockingly. Humph. We admit that you're very strong and can defeat extraordinaires with the power of a god emperor, but so what? Since we're here, we have the confidence to kill you. After all, you're just a god emperor. In our eyes, you're still an ant. At this moment, 3 men stepped out of the void. They spoke in a disdainful tone, which really pissed Jiang Qin off. However, this time, Jiang Qin wasn't as arrogant as before. This was because the moment the 3 men appeared, the array patterns that he had just set up were destroyed. At the same time, this world seemed to be isolated from the outside world. 3 great domains emanated from these 3 people. They strengthened their domains and even trapped Jiang Qin there. Now, it's 3 against 1. In our domains, we're the kings. As a god emperor, do you have your own domain? The 3 men said disdainfully. When they looked at Jiang Qin, although there was a hint of fear in their eyes, there was more killing intent. As for fear, they didn't feel it at all. All of you are very strong. Half-step to immortality? Jiang Qin stared at the 3 men, his heart pounding. Half-step to immortality, but it's enough to kill you. Why would I need half-step to immortality to kill you? Chapter 1356. Half-step to immortal ascension, that was the highest realm that cultivators could reach since prehistoric times. Such people would not make a move, but once they made a move, the world would be turned upside down. If the 3 people in front of him were really half-step to immortal ascension, then things would be much simpler. Jiang Qin would just admit defeat and stop fighting. After all, he could not defeat them. But now, each of you has a domain. Are you trying to trap me here and kill me? Jiang Qin whispered. His eyes were cold and bright. The shadow of a dragon seemed to appear on his spine, and the roar of a fierce tiger came from his chest. Boom! The moment his voice fell, the 3 of them vaguely saw a dragon claw strike out, bombarding their triple domains. However, the triple domain was not a joke. After the dragon claw was launched, it only caused a slight ripple on the light screen that was formed by the domain. Kid, this is a domain that the 3 of us set up together. Just one domain alone is not something that you can break. I'll send you on your way. At this moment, the 3 people stood where they were and raised their hands. The power of laws and divine power fell and bombarded Jiang Qin. In the domain, all attacks could not be avoided. This was the rule of the domain. Therefore, they did not need to target Jiang Qin. As long as they attacked, they would be able to hit Jiang Qin with 100% certainty. Jiang Qin also knew how powerful the domain was. At this moment, a roar came from his body, and the tiger bone and dragon meridian shook. If that's the case, then let's fight head-on! Jiang Qin roared. No one would help him in this battle. He could only rely on himself. With a long roar, Jiang Qin rushed out. His left hand formed the dragon seal, and his right hand formed the tiger fist. With a push, he scattered the 3 people's attacks. At the same time, an ancient clock appeared above his head, and the hour hand began to turn slowly. Die! Who gave you the courage to unify the greater world? Even we have no dominator, let alone you! The 3 of them shouted angrily and calmly stood where they were. Their hands continuously slapped out, and one attack after another fell like a violent storm. Jiang Qin knew that he couldn't avoid these attacks, so he was very tough. He charged out and tore apart the terrifying divine power with his bare hands. In the end, he arrived in front of these 3 people. Boom! At this moment, Jiang Qin didn't make any unnecessary movements. He swung his fists and blasted wildly. He was very clear that if he wanted to win today's battle, then it would be a bloody battle. Either he would die within these 3 domains, or the 3 of them would be killed by him, and the domains would automatically collapse. Brat! With your God Emperor level body, you dare to fight us head on! You really don't know what death is! These 3 people were also incomparably confident. They formed a triangular formation and instantly engaged in a fierce battle with Jiang Chen. After half an instance's time, Jiang Chen didn't stop. His attacks were even more violent, and the 3 of them were beaten until their faces were full of cold sweat. Their attacks hit Jiang Chen squarely, but not only did Jiang Chen take it head on, he didn't even have a scratch on him. Especially the surface of his body, which was flawless and dazzling, like a piece of unpolished jade between heaven and earth, which couldn't be damaged at all. If I can't kill you today, my years of cultivation will be in vain. Brat! I can exhaust you to death. The 3 of them were enraged, and their attacks were even more violent. They didn't believe that they couldn't kill Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen looked fierce, but in fact, he was also under a lot of pressure. These 3 people's cultivation were there for all to see. Their attacks were powerful. Every time Jiang Chen took their attacks head on, the blood and qi in his body would vibrate. If he hadn't been holding it in, he would have vomited blood by now. Suppress. After another half an instance's time, when the hour hand on top of Jiang Chen's head passed 15 minutes, Jiang Chen saw the opportunity and used the law of time to freeze one of the people in front of him. Then, the ever-changing heavenly lamp exploded with a sharp light, and a green sword light slashed across, cutting the person in half. However, the power of time hadn't reached its peak yet. The person's physical body had just been slashed by the sword light, and he broke free from the restraints of time. His soul escaped, and his physical body was reconstructed in an instant. The law of time? Be careful. This brat is not simple. The few of them were shocked. Even they couldn't comprehend such a supreme law. They didn't expect a cultivator of the God Arch realm to comprehend it. Kill. At this moment, Jiang Chen was almost crazy. He used his physical body to take their attacks head on. At the same time, the 3 Tao spirits shone brightly. The vines and the inextinguishable fire filled the 3-layered territory, and there were even green sword lights stirring in the territory like dragons. This place seemed to have been turned into chaos. They couldn't see their figures, but they could hear muffled groans from time to time. Of course, the smell of blood permeated the air. Where's boss? Half a day later, Wakako led a group of people to the palace. The battle in the south had already ended. Many people had died, and even Wakako had half of his body shattered. He's fighting fiercely with 3 extraordinaires in the territory. Someone replied. He didn't have time to help Jiang Chen at all. Moreover, who could help in such a battle? After all, not everyone was like Jiang Chen, who had low cultivation and high combat power. Territory? Wakako frowned. He looked at the chaotic light screen in front of him, and raised his hand to punch it. However, the territory set up by the 3 extraordinaires was too powerful. Wakako's punch only caused some ripples on the light screen of the territory. It was impossible to penetrate it. He'll be fine, right? Someone muttered. But just as he finished speaking, he saw Wakako's murderous gaze. Boss will be fine. He's invincible, Wakako said in a low voice. After another half a day, Bai Fingyu and the rest also returned. They were all injured, especially Nayland Mayer. She was on the verge of death. If not for Bai Fingyu using the power of the moon to protect her, Nayland Mayer would have died long ago. It's all settled? The battles around the Black Market Palace are basically over. The remaining battles aren't something we can handle. The few of them gathered together and looked at the sky in the distance. There, the divine light was rolling like a river. It was a battle between the Rotten and another powerful being. There were also battles between the 3 evil races' patriarchs and the other patriarchs. Wakako and the rest couldn't interfere in such battles. They could only stand near the Black Market Palace and watch quietly. At the same time, they were worried about Jiang Qin. After all, Jiang Qin's battle had lasted for too long, almost an entire day. The rotten isn't here. Who can stop me in the ancestral court? Suddenly, an extremely arrogant voice came from afar. Then, Enchi, who had left earlier, arrived with a group of Red Spider Lily clan experts. After these people arrived, they didn't say anything and directly pounced on Jiang Lu and the others. Enchi! If you dare to attack, I'll destroy you! The Rotten's angry roar came from afar, and a terrifying aura erupted above the clouds. Rotten, don't worry, I won't attack. I'll just let a few of my clansmen exchange blows with his brothers and disciples. As for life and death, humph. And she sneered. Then, his eyes narrowed and he shouted to his clansmen. Kill! Chapter 1357. And she had returned. He knew that the Rotten One couldn't make a move and wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to kill Jiang Qin and the others in one fell swoop. However, and she was still afraid of the Rotten One. He didn't make a move himself and only sent some emperors and a few transcendents. However, even if and she didn't make a move, the people he sent were enough to kill Jianglu and the others. Let's fight. Who's afraid of who? It's just death. What's there to be afraid of? Jianglu, Wakako, and the others were very direct. There was no fear in their eyes at all. To them, if they hadn't met Jiang Qin, they might have died long ago. Their footsteps would have stopped in the godless continent, or the divine world of the ninth heaven. They were very satisfied to be able to reach this point. Therefore, to them, what was there to be afraid of? If they couldn't win, at most, they would die. They weren't even afraid of death. What was there to be afraid of? Kill! Since prehistoric times, this world has been the world of my red spider lilies. Since when did you have the right to dominate? After today, this world will belong to my red spider lilies. At this moment, both sides made a move. They used their strongest combat power. However, not long after the battle started, people were injured one after another, especially Jianglu and Wakako. These two were too fierce. They completely ignored defense and rushed to the front. Injuries were the last thing they would suffer. Back off! I'll do it! Wakako looked at Jianglu, whose body was cracked. Purple domineering aura erupted from his body. When he opened and closed his eyes, it was as if there were purple stars rotating. Why aren't you retreating? Back off! I'll do it! Jianglu raised his eyebrows. His body was almost bouncing in a short period of time, but he never took a step back. This was because he and Wakako knew that if they retreated, the people behind them would definitely die. In the previous battle, Baifeng Yu, Naylan Mayer, and the others were injured. At this moment, they were healing and couldn't fight at all. But at that moment, as the two strongest subordinates of Jiang Qin, if they retreated, the people behind them would all die. What's there to be afraid of when the three of us travel together? At this moment, Shao Qingyi also rushed over. After devouring the ancient spirit, his combat strength had skyrocketed. He was no weaker than Jianglu and Wakako. I didn't take part in the last battle in the ninth heaven divine world, but this battle. I'll be there. Beta Heike had also come. He had always been very strong, but he rarely took part. But this time, he was going all out. He was the last remaining member of the Pingtian clan. Even if he died, he had to preserve the pride of his clan. It's just a few emperors. Even if you are transcendents, you will all die today. After a fierce battle, Jianglu's body was shattered and his soul was shaken. He was almost annihilated. Fortunately, Shao Qingyi acted in time. He used the necromancy technique that he was best at and banished Jianglu's soul to the void. Although he couldn't come back for the time being, he was still safe. Did you see that? Don't be afraid of death. Leave behind a wisp of your soul, and I guarantee that you won't be destroyed. Shao Qingyi said. He was very confident in his necromancy technique. Just kill them and be done with it. Rua Shao roared angrily. She opened her fists wide and charged at one of the extraordinaries. He was truly fearless. As a tyrant, he understood the meaning of dominance to the extreme. There was no fear in his heart. However, there were too many people from the red spider lilies this time, and they were too strong. After half an hour, Wakako's body was also shattered. Shao Qing hurriedly banished his soul. Then, after Beta Heike killed the Transcendent, his soul dimmed and he almost died on the spot. Helpless, Shao Qing could only swallow his soul and store it in his body. As long as he didn't die, Beta Heike wouldn't die. However, could Shao Qing guarantee that he wouldn't die in today's battle? He could banish Wakako and Jianglu's souls and guarantee that they wouldn't be destroyed. But who would banish his soul? Beta Heike, it seems that you and I are going to die today. Shao Qing was still persevering. The undead army appeared one after another, but they couldn't last for more than 3 to 5 breaths. He was too tired. He was gradually getting tired. The divine power in his body was being consumed too quickly. If you die, it'll really be 1 corpse and 2 lives. Beta Heike joked. He was close to death, but he was still fearless. It's not just 1 corpse and 2 lives. Shao Qing sighed. He looked back at Bai Fingyu and the others. He knew very well that if he fell, the group behind him would also die. However, he wanted to persevere, but he really couldn't hold on any longer. The attacks of the red spider lilies were too violent, especially the attacks of those transcendents. They could even split the sky and shake the earth. If he hadn't swallowed Gu Ling and obtained most of her power, he would have died long ago. A man is about to die. The wine in the cup is mixed with blood, and it becomes an injury. Suddenly, a leisurely voice sounded. No one could tell where this voice came from, but in a few breaths 3 emperors of the red spider lilies were pierced between their eyebrows and died on the spot. Mu Xingyun? Shao Qing and the others were shocked. They didn't expect this guy to come and help. However, although Mu Xingyun's assassination skills were strong, there were too many people on the other side, and there were even transcendents. Mu Xingyun couldn't solve the problem at all by killing a few people. I can't beat them. I can't help. I'll leave first. After a few breaths, Mu Xingyun sighed. He attacked, but he was also locked on by the other side's transcendence. If he attacked again, he would die too. You guys are really good. Before Mu Xingyun could retreat, an extremely angry voice came from not far away. As soon as the voice reached here, a lotus bloomed in the distance. The lotus leaves were resplendent, and there were exactly 72 of them. Chanting Chang'e. 72 lotuses. At this moment, Shao Qing and the others were excited. They knew very well that apart from Jiangqin, chanting Chang'e was the strongest in their group. And this guy's 72 lotuses could be said to be heaven-defying. It fused 72 kinds of magical powers together. However, no one expected chanting Chang'e to come. Chanin? Chanin Chang'e? You're still alive? At this moment, and she exclaimed. Then, even Rotten exclaimed. Clearly, chanting Chang'e's identity was indeed not simple. These prehistoric powerhouses all knew him. Especially in Qi. The moment he saw chanting Chang'e, fear appeared on his face. There was even a trace of fear in the depths of his eyes. In Qi, you were arrogant in prehistoric times. I didn't expect you to still be like this today. Chanting Chang'e raised his eyebrows and walked over slowly on the 72 lotuses. When he arrived in front of Qi, he joked. What? Do you still want to fight with me? You can't still be alive. If you're still alive, how could the ancient heavenly court be destroyed? And she said solemnly. Chanting Chang'e was standing in front of him alive, but he still didn't want to believe that he was still alive. Chapter 1358. Nian Chang'e's arrival was beyond everyone's expectations. After all, after Nian Chang'e and the Ghost King Bell left, no one except Jiangqin had seen him again. Jiangqin had mentioned to them once in a while that Nian Chang'e might not come back. And in the previous battle, Nian Chang'e had never appeared. But unexpectedly, he still came at this critical moment. Perhaps, He had always been worried about Jiangchen and the others, or perhaps he had always been paying attention to them. But what was more shocking was not Nian Chang'e's arrival, but in Qi's words. If Nian Chang'e was still alive, how could the ancient heavenly court be destroyed? What did he mean? There is no such thing as invincibility. Nian Chang'e sighed, a trace of bitterness and helplessness in the depths of his eyes. He didn't deny his relationship with the ancient heavenly court, but he didn't say what it was, and Qi didn't say either, as if it was a taboo. At this moment, with the arrival of Nian Chang'e, the battle near the hall stopped. Only the three evil race ancestors and the rotten one were still fighting fiercely. Obviously, the opponent they encountered was very strong, and even the rotten one couldn't deal with him in a short time. Since I'm here, how about we call off today's battle? Nian Chang'e looked at Qi, a cold light flashing in his eyes. This is not the prehistoric era. You should recognize the current situation. So what? I wasn't afraid of you in the prehistoric era, let alone now. Qi raised his eyebrows. The moment he saw Nian Chang'e, he was indeed afraid. But now, he could see that Nian Chang'e's condition was not right. His cultivation and strength were not as good as in the prehistoric era. You had an accident? Otherwise, the ancient heavenly court would not have been destroyed. Qi said coldly. You are no longer the former him. You can't stop me. And you can't stop my Red Spider Lily clan. Of the 6 ancestors of the Red Spider Lily clan, you are ranked last. Nian Chang'e said softly. Seeing that you are full of confidence, does that mean that the other 5 ancestors of the Red Spider Lily clan are still alive? Humph. It's good that you know. Qi proudly raised his chin. No one knew better than him just how powerful the Permitha Flower clan was. Amongst the 6 ancestors of the Permitha Flower clan, his strength was ranked the weakest. However, in this era, he was still synonymous with invincibility. Even Rotten didn't dare to start a fight with him easily. However, Qi was indeed afraid of Rotten, so they retreated to save face for both sides. But if a war really broke out, Qi would definitely dare to fight. Now that he thought about it, the strength of the other 5 ancestors of the Permitha Flower clan was obvious. Since you don't want to stop, then I can only take action. Nian Chang'e sighed, and a trace of reminiscence flashed in her eyes. He looked at Qi for a while and smiled bitterly. You know, sometimes invincibility is really forced out. Really? In this world, with the 6 ancestors of my Permitha Flower clan here, who dares to claim to be invincible? Qi became even more arrogant. He tore apart the void with his bare hands. He stared at Nian Chang'e and said, Our descendants and disciples are here. Why don't we fight in the void? As you wish. Nian Chang'e sighed and looked at Xiaoqing and the others with a bitter smile. I can only stop him. As for the others of the Permitha Flower clan, you can only deal with them yourselves. With that, Nian Chang'e directly entered the void, and then Qi charged in. Boom! The moment the void closed, an explosion rang out. It was as if thunder had descended from the 9 heavens, causing the entire great 1,000 world to tremble. Vaguely, everyone seemed to sense waves of immortal Qi spreading out from the void. Both of them have become immortals? Is this immortal Qi? Everyone was shocked. After all, only immortals had such immortal Qi. They haven't become immortals yet. Perhaps they're just one step away, someone explained. Or perhaps, they're both waiting for an opportunity. Kill! If we kill you, there will be no more ancestral court! At this moment, the Permitha Flower clan attacked again, and their attacks were even more violent. Xiaoqing's face was pale. He kept summoning the undead army and sacrificing his essence blood to stop them. However, it was far too difficult for him to stop so many powerful cultivators from the Red Spider Lily clan by himself. With no other choice, Xiaoqing retreated. However, as he retreated, he swept up a gust of chilly wind and turned it into a ship. After putting the people of Ancestral Court on it, he threw it into the void. Xiaoqing? What are you doing? Go! Bai Fingyu and the others were shocked. They knew the consequences of Xiao Qingyi's actions. He must die. I'm very happy and satisfied to be able to be with you all in this life. Xiao Qingyi's back was facing them, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. However, he smiled and said, "If I didn't meet you, perhaps I would still be an invisible person in this world. Now I'm famous in the world, and I've made a trip to this world. Why should I fear death? But I can't accompany boss anymore." With that, the divine power in Xiao Qingyi's body surged and burned like a pillar of fire. He wanted to burn his Dao fruit to isolate this place so that Bai Fingyu and the others could have some time to escape. I said it's a bit hot. Beta Heiki's soul was in Xiao Qingyi's body. She said mockingly, "Your Dao fruit is really fierce. After burning it, did you think about my feelings? 2 lives in one body." Xiao Qingyi also joked, "If there's a next life, I won't devour you. I hope there's a next life." Beta Heiki sighed, feeling reluctant. He was the only one left in the Pinkian clan. There were rumors that there might be another ancestor of the Pinkian clan in the ancestral realm. However, they probably wouldn't see him in this life, right? They're just ants. Do they think they can stop us by burning their Dao fruit? Even if they escape today, where can they go? This world belongs to the Paramitha Flower clan. The experts of the Paramitha Flower clan had cold expressions. After destroying the ancestral court today, the power of the upper-class world would fall into their hands again. As for whether Rotten and the others would avenge Jiang Chen and the others, they didn't have to worry about that at all. After all, not many people in this world would avenge a few dead people. Moreover, the Paramitha Flower clan had a total of 6 ancestors. If they all came out, the world would definitely be united. At that time, so what if they were rotten? So what if they were evil ancestors? So what if they were Nyen Changa? I say. I, the main character, haven't left yet. Why are you running? Suddenly, an explosion came from behind Xiao Qingyi. 3 domains exploded, and then a green lamp burned leisurely. A remnant soul shone with divine light in the lamp, and its body was being reconstructed at a visible speed. Chapter 1359. The light flickered as if it would be extinguished at any moment. Jiang Chen was in a very bad state. He only had a wisp of soul left, but he was rebuilding his body in the myriad-form heavenly lamp. The 3 domains collapsed. There was nothing else in the field except for the broken buildings and the torn void. A green lamp and a wisp of soul suddenly appeared, illuminating everything. After a few breaths, Jiang Chen finished rebuilding his body before anyone could react. He stepped out and came to Xiao Qingyi's side. "Are they all alive?" Jiang Chen asked. Xiao Qingyi froze for a moment before he reacted. He nodded excitedly and said, "They're all alive." "Okay, leave the rest to me," Jiang Chen said softly. He twisted his wrist and muttered, "I almost died." "What about the 3 extraordinaires?" Xiao Qingyi asked. "What do you think?" Jiang Chen smiled and didn't explain further. After all, there was no need to explain this. He was still alive. This was enough to explain everything. You just went through a bloody battle and only had a wisp of soul left. Even if you rebuild your body now, how good can your condition be? Our cultivation levels are all above yours. The powerhouses of the Hurricane Lily race had solemn expressions, but they were still arrogant. They came fully prepared this time. Extraordinaires and emperors were all here. Although they didn't come in full force, it was enough to crush many top forces. Now, a celestial arch cultivator wanted to stop them? Was this possible? However, everyone present felt that it was very possible. After all, and Qingtsang and Xingtian died in Jiang Chen's hands. And just now, Jiang Chen even killed 3 extraordinaires. This combat strength was ridiculously strong. It was a miracle that he was still alive. You destroyed my sect and injured my limbs. You don't have to go back today. Jiang Chen's eyes suddenly turned cold. At the same time, a clock appeared above his head. This clock had always been there during the continuous battles. And now, the clock hand had slid to 20 o'clock. 1. The moment his voice fell, Jiang Chen waved his hand. The law of time erupted, and he attacked with his strongest stance. In an instant, the group of people in front of him were frozen in time. Then, the ever-changing heavenly lamp shone brightly and streaks of green sword radiance slashed out. Wherever it passed, blood splattered everywhere. The physical body was slashed apart, and even the soul was annihilated by the green sword light. The time laws lasted for 10 breaths. After 10 breaths, the group of powerhouses from the Paramitha flower race had all perished. This? Boss? Aren't you too fierce? Xiao Qingyi's eyes widened. They had been fighting to the death until now, but he didn't expect that Jiang Chen would finish them off in 10 breaths of time. After enduring for so long, it's only right, Jiang Chen said with a smile. After all, Jiang Chen was almost beaten to death when he fought with the 3 extraordinaires. If not for enduring until time law reached its strongest period, he would probably have died long ago. Now, when the law of time was at its strongest, Jiang Chen could even hold his own against a half-step genuine immortal, let alone these emperors. Huh! What's going on? It's raining? Is it blood? All of a sudden, everyone stopped. The rotten man and the 3 evil ancestors froze in place. They looked at the sky. Just now, it had suddenly rained blood. Moreover, the blood rain was getting heavier and heavier. The blood rain contained the pure power of the great Tao and the order of laws. At the same time, the wind and clouds surged in the highest sky, and a blurry eye seemed to appear. The rain of blood was dripping down from the eye. Crying? The sky is crying? After a few breaths of time, the blood rain became heavier and heavier. There were even cries that shook the entire great wide world. Even the outer regions of the great wide world could hear the cries. The sky is crying? This isn't an ordinary sky crying. Even if an extraordinaire died, such a phenomenon wouldn't appear in the sky. Could it be that a genuine immortal died? At this moment, everyone around the world was shocked. It was difficult for living beings in this era to become immortals, so how could a genuine immortal die? Bah! Invincibility was really forced out. Suddenly, a nearby void cracked open, and a mouthful of blood foam was spat out from the void crack. Then, Nian Chang'e walked out covered in blood. Even half of his soul had been obliterated. He cursed as he walked out of the void, holding a head in his right hand. Upon closer inspection, it was Enqi's head. Eh? You're out too? Nian Chang'e looked at Jiang Chen and seemed a little surprised. Then, he smiled and said, Not bad. 3 extraordinaires couldn't take you down. You're still the best. You killed Enqi. The corner of Jiang Chen's mouth twitched. He had a new understanding of Nian Chang'e's strength. It seemed that every time they parted, his strength would increase by a large amount. It's not that I killed him, Nian Chang'e said. He looked back at the void and said, Let's go. It's all settled. Hearing this, Jiang Chen's expression froze. He instantly understood what was going on. Perhaps Nian Chang'e had contributed to the battle with Enqi, but with Nian Chang'e's current strength, it was impossible for her to kill Enqi. Then, there was only one possibility. The Ghoul King clock had also made a move. After this farewell, I don't know how long it will be before we meet again. Nian Chang'e threw Enqi's head at Jiang Chen's feet and said, Keep it as a souvenir. It can also intimidate the red spider lilies. Where are you going? Jiang Chen asked. The 3 realms. Nian Chang'e shrugged and said, I can't not do what Master has ordered me to do. The Demon King? Jiang Chen said softly. He opened his mouth and had a lot of questions in his heart. However, Nian Chang'e seemed to know what Jiang Chen wanted to ask. He didn't give Jiang Chen a chance and turned to leave. Boss, why do I feel like Nian Chang'e has changed? Xiao Qingyi frowned and muttered. He's become so unfamiliar. It doesn't matter if he's unfamiliar or not. What's important is that he's always been on my side. Jiang Chen said softly. Previously, Jiang Chen had a lot of suspicions about Nian Chang'e. He even wondered if Nian Chang'e would be his enemy. But now, it seemed that he was thinking too much. But what puzzled Jiang Chen was what secrets Nian Chang'e had. Why couldn't he tell him? Could it be related to some kind of taboo? And Hung. And she is dead. Do you still want to continue fighting with me? At this moment, the Rotten spoke and revealed the identity of the person he was fighting. And Hung? The fifth ancestor of the red spider lilies, and Hung? At this moment, some of the old freaks were shocked. They couldn't believe that the person who had fought with Rotten was actually a member of the Resurrection Lily clan. Moreover, he was stronger than in Chi. He was the fifth ancestor of the Resurrection Lily clan, and Hung. Chapter 1360. There was no need to talk about Enhang's strength. The Rotten Man could force Enchi to retreat, but he couldn't defeat Enhang. This alone was enough to prove his strength. At this moment, Enhang stood in the air. His eyes flickered like two suns as he stared fixedly at the Rotten Man. To him, everyone present was trash. Only the Rotten Man could threaten him. "You killed a few of my clansmen?" Enhang said coldly. "You're letting me go back just like that? If they didn't make a move, how could they die?" The Rotten Man retorted. "The war in the world is like this. Once the war starts, there will definitely be life and death. So, you should pay a price here," Enhang said. He stood in the void like the most dazzling god in the world. As the fifth ancestor of the Red Spider Lily clan, he was extremely powerful. He was indeed qualified to stand here. Chaos is coming, and the Dark Blood era is about to erupt. Enhang, why don't you protect the Red Spider Lily clan? Why do you have to interfere in our affairs? Hearing this, Enhang sneered a few times, his eyes full of contempt. It was as if he was mocking the Rotten Man for saying something wrong. If it were someone else who became the master of the ancestral court and controlled the Great Thousand World, why would my Red Spider Lily clan make such a big fuss? Enhang said. Anyone can be the master of this world, but not him. After saying that, Enhang pointed at Jiang Chen. His sun-like eyes opened and closed, and killing intent soared. "Are you afraid?" The Rotten Man whispered. "Afraid that if he controls the Great Thousand World, he'll be blessed with providence. Maybe he can really return for 10 lifetimes? Yes. So what?" Enhang's voice gradually turned cold. If the Rotten Man wasn't beside him, he would definitely kill Jiang Chen. The return of 10 reincarnations was not a joke. One had to know that Jiang Chen's previous lifetimes were the top powerhouses in the world. Such a person could reincarnate for 10 lifetimes and return to one. If he really returned, how terrifying would that be? If Jiang Chen really returned, the status of the Red Spider Lily clan in the Great Thousand World would definitely change. They would no longer be able to control the ups and downs of the Great Thousand World like they were now. The Red Spider Lilies had lived for so long in the prehistoric times, all for the sake of dominating the fate of this world. Now that everything was under their control, how could the Red Spider Lily clan hand over everything to someone else? Furthermore, those who had survived from prehistoric times knew that the Red Spider Lilies and Jiang Chen had a grudge against each other. If Jiang Chen returned, even if the Red Spider Lily clan wasn't completely wiped out, they wouldn't have an easy time either. "I'll promise the Red Spider Lily clan on his behalf that if he really does return, as long as the Red Spider Lily clan doesn't do anything out of line, he definitely won't harm a single hair on them," Rotten said seriously. Enhang instantly fell silent when he heard this. He looked at the Rotten Man suspiciously, as if doubting whether the Rotten Man had the authority to make decisions for Jiang Chen. One had to know that Jiang Chen had yet to return, so it was normal for him to listen to the Rotten One. After all, there was a huge difference in strength between them. But when Jiang Chen really returned, would the Rotten Man's promise be fulfilled? Let him say it himself. After a few breaths, Enhang looked at Jiang Chen and said, "Swear on your soul that if you really return, you're not allowed to do anything to the Red Spider Lily clan." Jiang Chen frowned slightly when he heard that. Many thoughts flashed through his mind at that moment. He secretly sent a voice transmission and asked, "Rotten one, if I don't swear today, will he not let the matter rest?" "Yes." The rotten man sent a voice transmission. "I know Nheng's temper very well. If you don't swear today, the other 4 patriarchs of the Red Spider Lily clan will come. At that time, even I won't be able to protect you. But if I swear, what should I do if the Red Spider Lily clan does anything out of line in the future?" Jiangchen asked. "Swear on your soul," the rotten man said with a strange expression as he stared at Jiangchen. It was as if he could see into Jiangchen's soul. At this moment, Jiangchen was struck dumb. Then he came to himself. Swearing on one's soul was indeed a serious matter for most people, but for Jiangchen, it was nothing. One had to know that in his soul, there was a clone that could help him block death. And that clone was equivalent to Jiangchen's second soul. "I swear on my soul that if I return in the future, as long as the Red Spider Lily clan doesn't do anything out of line, I will definitely not do anything to them." Jiangchen swore, his expression extremely solemn. And Nheng finally felt relieved when he saw Jiangchen take the oath. He looked at Jiangchen mockingly and asked, "Do you know what the enmity between you and the Red Spider Lily clan is?" "What?" Jiangchen was stunned. He didn't remember the memories of his previous lives. How would he know how the enmity between him and the Red Spider Lily clan was formed? "I cut off your path of return," Nheng said mockingly. "Otherwise, you could have returned in your previous life. Why would you need to wait for 10 lives? 9 is 1, and 9 is the extreme number. If nothing unexpected happened to you, why would you wait until your 10th life?" As soon as he said this, to everyone's surprise, Jiangchen's expression was very calm, as if he was listening to something that had nothing to do with him. "Actually, I am me. I don't care if I can return or not." Jiangchen shrugged indifferently and said, "I was so powerful in my previous lives. Even if I don't return in this life, I can still do it." "Humph, you do have a temper," Nheng said disdainfully. "With your current realm, it's impossible for you to understand how powerful you were in the past." With that, Nheng waved his hand and stepped into the void, leaving behind only one sentence. "Remember your oath." In the end, this battle came to an end. The ancestral court suffered many casualties, but the key people were still there. As for the forces affiliated to the ancestral court, they suffered heavy casualties, but fortunately, the sect masters were still alive. After this battle, the great wide world would probably be peaceful for a long time. The ancestral court's status in the great wide world could almost replace the former Holy Land. "Let's rest for a while," Jiangchen said softly. He looked at the ruins of the Black Market's headquarters and felt a little guilty. If the 3 giants of the Black Market knew that he had used this place as a battlefield and destroyed the Black Market's headquarters, would they skin him alive? Jiangchen did not doubt the strength of the 3 giants of the Black Market at all. After all, even the rotten man had submitted to them before. A battle has decided the universe. As the first court master of the ancestral court, it's time for you to make some preparations. Half a day later, the rotten man and Jiangchen stood at the back mountain of the Black Market. The rotten man looked into the distance. His eyes were shining brightly, and his aura was rising and falling. He was extraordinary. Jiangchen stared at the rotten man and asked tentatively, "Rotten man, what's your cultivation level?" "I should be half-step to immortality," the rotten man said. Jiangchen was unhappy when he heard this. Could he not even be sure of his cultivation level? Was he not bluffing? "Maybe a little higher," the rotten man muttered, and a trace of confusion appeared in his eyes. Chapter 1361. The rotten man's words made Jiangchen a little speechless. He didn't even know his own realm? Wasn't this life too muddle-headed? However, the rotten man didn't continue on this topic. Instead, he seriously told Jiangchen that after this battle, the ancestral court had stabilized its position in the great, wide world. In a few days, all the major forces in the great wide world would come over to make a pilgrimage. This could be considered as the major forces acknowledging the status of the ancestral court. For the ancestral court, which had just been established, it was undoubtedly a grand banquet for all the great forces to come here on a pilgrimage. As the lord of the ancestral court, Jiangchen certainly had to dress up well. He could not afford to lose his bearing. However, Jiangchen didn't care. He was used to being a hands-off boss. Since the ancestral court had stabilized, he had nothing to do. "Rotten man, you're experienced. Why don't I give you the position of the ancestral court?" Jiangchen said. As soon as he said this, the rotten man's face darkened. He said angrily, "You want to be a hands-off boss? Don't I want to? This?" Jiangchen was speechless. He wondered how many people were envious of the position of the master of the ancestral court. In the end, the two of them were pushing each other away. "Jianglu is too naive. My female disciples aren't very sensible. Xiao Qingyi has some relationship with Gu Ling. If I really want someone else to be the master of the ancestral court..." Jiangchen frowned. Although the people around him were very strong, there weren't many people who could be the master of the ancestral court. As for those great virtues, Jiangchen didn't even think about that. What a joke. If he handed the ancestral court to those great virtues, wouldn't it be a mess? After thinking about it, Jiangchen made the most wise decision in his life. "Why don't we let Wakako be the master of the ancestral court? He has ambition and hegemony, and he's quite calm when doing things." Jiangchen muttered. "Up to you," the rotten man said. "Then, let's do it." In the end, Jiangchen called everyone in ancestral court over and announced his abdication on the spot, handing the position of ancestral court to Wakako. This time, the people of ancestral court were completely dumbfounded. "Big brother, are you serious? It wasn't easy for the ancestral court to stabilize. You haven't even warmed up your seat as the master of the ancestral court, and you're already giving it up. Moreover, of all people, why did you give it to Wakako, this warmonger? I'm afraid you want to stir up internal strife in the vast 1,000 domains, right?" "Boss, I can't." Wakako also hurriedly declined. "I'm good at fighting and killing, but I'm not suitable to manage the ancestral court." "Don't worry, we will support you." Jiangchen smiled and said, "It's decided then. In a few days, all the major forces will come to make a pilgrimage. You will be in charge of the overall situation." Wakako was speechless. Although he knew that Jiangchen wanted to be a hands-off shopkeeper, he couldn't let him take care of this matter, right? However, due to Jiangchen's resolute attitude, Wakako had no choice but to agree in a muffled voice. Then Jianglu, Baifengyu, and the others sent their blessings. In the following days, Jiangchen, Baifengyu, and the others lived a leisurely life, not caring about the ancestral court. Even Jianglu had nothing to do all day long, basking in the sun and cultivating from time to time. Only Wakako had to take care of the ancestral court all day long. After all, there were many masters of forces coming every day, and there were also major forces coming to join them. He really didn't have time to rest. Jiangchen was lying on a rocking chair in the backyard, basking in the sun. His female disciples were also there. Do you see that? How busy is it to be a master of a force? Isn't it good to bask in the sun? Master, everything is done, then our matter. Baifengyu blinked and stared at Jiangchen, blushing slightly. Upon hearing this, Jiangchen's face turned pale. He covered his head and said seriously, "There has been a mistake in my cultivation recently. I will go into seclusion for a while." After saying that, he ran away, leaving Baifengyu and the others in a daze. Time passed slowly. Under the leadership of Wakako, the ancestral court's mountain gate began to be built, and the speed was very fast. The ancestral court invited many skilled craftsmen, and there was no lack of formation masters. They built a group of palaces above the headquarters of the black market. A month later, the ancestral court's mountain gate was established. Wakako stood at the mountain gate with the people of the ancestral court, waiting for the arrival of the masters of the major forces. Although the ancestral court did not send out invitations, as long as one was not a fool, one would know what to do. Today, the ancestral court's mountain gate was established. If the masters of the major forces wanted to join the ancestral court, then today was undoubtedly the best choice. As expected by Wakako and the others, from the first ray of sunlight in the morning on the mountain gate of the ancestral court, the masters of the major forces had arrived. I've long heard of the great name of the tyrant Wakako. He established the ancestral court at such a young age. From now on, the ancestral court will be in charge of the great, wide world. I hope that the ancestral court will take care of us in the future. These masters were all shrewd people. Before they arrived, a set of compliments had already been delivered. Boolsh *T. The ancestral court was established by my boss. I'm just working for him, Wakako said very directly. Although he was now the master of the ancestral court, his way of speaking was still so barbaric. When Rotten heard this, he tugged at Wakako's sleeve and said, "As the master of the ancestral court, pay attention to your words. This is so troublesome?" Wakako's face was dark, but due to Rotten's seniority and strength, he still squeezed out a smile and said, "Welcome, everyone." Half a day later, many masters of the great wide world came, but there were not many of them. The great wide world was so big, but there were only nearly 100 masters sitting in the main hall of the ancestral court at this moment. One had to know that in the entire great wide world, there were at least 300 of the top forces. But now, only 1/3 of them had come. At this moment, the atmosphere in the main hall was somewhat oppressive. Wakako's face was dark, and he did not say a word. From time to time, his gaze swept past the faces of the masters of the major forces in the main hall. It was not until more than 10 breaths later that Wakako suddenly slammed his hand on the throne and shouted angrily, "None of you came to make a pilgrimage? Do you really think that I'm as good-tempered as my boss? This court master, perhaps some people have come from a long way away and are late." Someone tried to smooth things over, but when he saw Wakako's murderous gaze, he immediately swallowed the second half of his sentence. "Although the establishment of the ancestral court has not been announced to the world, they are not blind, right? What do you mean by not coming to make a pilgrimage? Or are they not convinced by the ancestral court?" Wakako glared at Rotten beside him and asked, "Senior, what do you think we should do?" Rotten was stunned for a moment before he said casually, "You're now the master of the ancestral court. You have the final say." As soon as he said this, Wakako immediately stood up, and his purple domineering aura erupted. He said coldly, "Damn it, if they don't come to make a pilgrimage, then I'll bring the people of the ancestral court to make a pilgrimage to them." Chapter 1362. Wakako's temper was like this. To him, there was nothing that couldn't be solved with a fight. If it didn't work, then he would fight again. At this moment, Wakako stood up. His face was gloomy, and his heart was filled with resentment. After the establishment of the ancestral court, all parties came to make a pilgrimage, but more than half of the forces did not come. This was undoubtedly not willing to accept the ancestral court. Now, since the ancestral court wanted to take control of the great wide world, they had to go through the baptism of war. "Gather everyone! Visit them one by one!" On this day, Wakako ordered the powerhouses of the ancestral court, as well as the forces that had joined them, to send out powerhouses and begin to travel in all directions. With the headquarters of the black market as the starting point, the people of the ancestral court began to fight and spread out in all directions. In just half a day, dozens of forces were captured by the ancestral court. The thunderous methods did not give these forces a chance to resist at all. "Where are the people of the ancestral court?" At this moment, Jiangchun leisurely strolled around the ancestral court and found that there was not even a gatekeeper in the entire ancestral court. Even the Rotten One and the 3 ancestors of the evil race were gone. Wakako brought the people of the ancestral court to battle. Baifengyu said, "You aren't you going to persuade them? Battle? Jiangchen was stunned, but he immediately understood what was going on. He waved his hand and chuckled. There are many people in the world who don't accept us. If they don't accept us, we'll beat them until they do. But if we do this, many people will die. Nayland Mayer frowned and said, Don't you like to win people over with virtue? Well, Jiangchen blushed. His so-called winning people with virtue was really indescribable. I'm not the one in charge of the ancestral court now. I like to win people over with virtue, but Wakako doesn't like it. He likes to win people over with martial arts, Jiangchen said with a smile. After saying that, Jiangchen frowned as if he had thought of something. He couldn't help but look up at the distant sky. A few breaths later, he suddenly stood up and said, It's time for me to go out for a walk. Although I'm a hands-off shopkeeper, there are still some things that I have to do. Master, you wouldn't be going to the ancestral realm, right? Bai Fengyu had followed Jiangchen for a long time. Naturally, he could guess what Jiangchen was thinking. The ancestral court was now in control of the great Kiliakosm. It was said that it had not completely controlled it yet, but it was almost there. Since the ancestral court was so powerful and could control the great thousand world, they naturally had to find a way to release the ancestral realm. Jiangchen had been in the great wide world for so long. He had always heard of the ancestral realm, but he had never seen it. Now that everything was settled, it was time to see what the real master of the ancestral realm was like. In the end, Jiangchen left alone. He didn't bring Bai Fengyu and the rest. After all, the ancestral realm was sealed and cursed. It wasn't safe for him to go there alone, let alone bring Bai Fengyu and the rest. After coming out of the ancestral court and asking around, Jiangchen quickly found out where the ancestral realm was. After all, the ancestral realm was very famous in the great wide world, so it was easy to find out. A day later, Jiangchen passed through a large area of the starry sky and finally arrived at a star domain that was bright and connected to the heavens. Looking around, divine light appeared, the laws of the great path rose and fell, golden lotuses bloomed everywhere, and auspicious signs appeared. In the center of all this light, there was an azure star that emitted vigorous vitality, but there was a layer of dark matter on the surface of the star. Is this the ancestral realm? Jiangchen muttered softly. Standing in the distance, he stared at the azure star, and his heart couldn't help but ripple. Whether it was the living beings of the six realms or the other living beings of the great wide world, according to ancient records, they all came from the ancestral realm. However, who would have thought that the home of the people of the great thousand realms would be sealed and cursed? I really don't know what the people of the world are thinking. Isn't sealing the ancestral realm the same as sealing their hometown? Jiangchen sighed softly. However, Jiangchen could also understand that as long as there were still people alive in this world, there would be a fight for power. The ancestral realm was just a bargaining chip in the game of various powerhouses. This cursed power is not simple. After more than 10 breaths, Jiangchen arrived above the ancestral realm but did not go deep. He stared at the ancestral realm and the layer of dark matter that surrounded it, and he was shocked. He could feel that the dark matter was very special. It could suppress the great path of heaven and earth, and constantly deprive the power of life. With this layer of curse, the living beings in the ancestral realm, I'm afraid it's difficult for their cultivation to surpass a godly king, and their lifespans won't exceed 1,000 years. Jiangchen sighed. Jiangchen stood in place. He was comprehending the source of the curse and trying to break it. However, how could a curse that could seal the ancestral realm be broken so easily? Even though Jiangchen was proficient in this field, it was difficult for him to break it in a short time. Moreover, Jiangchen did not stay here for long before he felt the power of life in his body flowing away. Even his cultivation fluctuated as if it was about to be deprived. I can't stay here for long. Jiangchen sighed. He secretly thought that with his current cultivation, he really shouldn't have come here. He couldn't even enter the ancestral realm. However, at this moment, a strand of chaos chi appeared beside him and turned into a curtain of light. It actually isolated the curse power from his body. Is this a way for me to go in? Jiangchen softly asked. Then, Jiang Chen's body slowly descended. After more than 10 breaths, he passed through a layer of blue clouds and finally landed on the ground of the ancestral realm. There were mountains all around, and before him was a patch of withered trees. The ground emitted a scorching white mist, and the air was filled with a layer of stench. Jiang Chen gently touched a tree beside him. To his surprise, the seemingly thick tree instantly turned into powder. When the wind blew, the trees in the distance also turned into powder. Has it all been corroded? Jiang Chen softly said. He was surrounded by chaos chi and could not feel the cursed power in this place. If I didn't block it for you, you would have died the moment you landed, a strand of chaos chi said. I am now an emperor god. My fighting power is not weaker than an emperor god. Jiang Chen did not believe it and said, Is the cursed power here so terrifying? Nonsense! Do you think a mere emperor god like you can resist the cursed power that can curse the entire ancestral realm? The chaos chi said unhappily. As soon as it finished speaking, Jiang Chen's ears twitched. He heard the sound of something breaking through the air not far away. When he looked up, he saw a few old men with white hair and beards rushing toward him. Emperor god cultivation? Jiang Chen was struck dumb. Seeing those old men still alive and kicking despite the curse's power, he couldn't help but doubt the primal chaos energy's words. The emperor god lived well under the cursed power. As an emperor god, why couldn't he live? Chapter 1363. Jiang Chen was dumbfounded. The two old men were clearly divine kings and they did not have any protective treasures on them. How did they survive? Fellow cultivator, are you all right? Fellow cultivator! Be careful! After a few breaths, the two old men rushed to Jiang Chen's side. They did not ask about Jiang Chen's identity, and called him fellow cultivator in a friendly manner. Moreover, they set up a formation and boundary as soon as they reached Jiang Chen's side. It was as if they were afraid that the curse here would corrode Jiang Chen. Jiang Chen was confused. Looking at the two old men in a daze, he asked, You know me? No. Never seen you before. The two old men shook their heads. How could they know Jiang Chen? Then, why are you so warm to me? Jiang Chen asked in confusion. You have the bloodline of the ancestral realm in your body. Is it wrong for us to be warm to you? That's right. Didn't you notice? Like you, we have the same blood flowing in our veins. The two old men explained. Jiang Chen only reacted when he heard that. When he saw the two old men earlier, his heart did palpitate for a moment. It was a feeling that was hard to describe. Now that he heard their explanation, he finally understood that the palpitating came from the bloodline. Seniors, your cultivations are just at the Divine King realm. So, why are you able to block the cursed power? Jiang Chen asked curiously. As soon as these words were spoken, the two old men were dumbfounded. They looked at each other, then looked at Jiang Chen and asked in unison, Why can't we block it? Jiang Chen was at a loss for words. He did not know what to say for a moment. As a divine emperor, he needed the chi of chaos to survive the curse of the ancestral realm. However, the two divine kings did not have any protective measures. Naturally, they could block the curse of the ancestral realm. This was not appropriate, right? Fellow cultivator, the power of the curse here is too strong. Let's go somewhere else. You must have just entered the ancestral realm. You can't stay here for long. In the end, the two old men left with Jiang Chen. After flying a few thousand kilometers to the south, they stopped at a small mountain. There was a sect on top of a small mountain. It wasn't very big, and the buildings weren't grand either. It could even be described as dilapidated. However, at the entrance of this sect, there was a plaque that read, The number 1 sect of the south. On the way here, Jiang Chen also learned the identities of these two old men. They were the two elders of this sect. One was called Lu Fang, and the other was called Lu Ming. According to them, the place where Jiang Chen had landed was the Cursed Land. It was the place with the densest cursed power in the entire ancestral realm. Their sect was relatively close to the cursed lands. Thus, they would usually pay attention to the situation in the cursed lands. It was precisely because of this that they were able to discover Jiangchen at the first moment. However, according to Lu Fang and Lu Ming, when they saw that Jiangchen, an emperor god, was able to survive in the cursed lands, they were shocked and surprised. Regarding this, Jiangchen sulked and said angrily in his heart, "If you can survive as supreme gods, why can't I, an emperor god, survive? Little friend Jiangchen, you're already so old. Why are you still only an emperor god?" At this moment, the two of them brought Jiangchen to the backyard of the sect. After sending some people to serve some fruits and tea, they started chatting. I'm already so old. What level should my cultivation be at?" Jiangchen blinked his eyes and felt even more resentful. "Look at the two of you. You're already so old, but your cultivation is only at the level of supreme gods. What's wrong with my cultivation being at the level of an emperor god at my age? Before talking about others, can't you be clear about your own cultivation level? According to your age, under normal circumstances, you should be at least a half-step transcendent, right?" At this moment, one of the disciples who came to serve tea spoke. When he looked at Jiangchen, there was a hint of contempt in his eyes. Of course, there was no hostility in this contempt. It was completely disdainful. "What the F***ck?" At this moment, Jiangchen jumped up. How could he tolerate being insulted again and again? "What? You're not convinced?" The disciple who served tea frowned and said angrily, "Don't look down on me just because I'm only a real god. If we really fight, you're really not my match. You brat! I'm not convinced!" Jiangchen exploded in anger. He looked at Lu Fang and Lu Ming and asked with a black face, "Can I spar with your disciple?" "No problem." Lu Fang nodded and waved his hand. A battle suit appeared in his hand and he passed it to Jiangchen. He reminded him kindly, "Young people don't know how to control their strength. Wear this battle suit. Don't get injured later." At this moment, Jiangchen was stunned. He held the battle suit with both hands. It was a mess. "Old man, are you F***king kidding me? The opponent is a real god and I'm an emperor god. The difference between our realms is not just 1 or 2 levels. Are you sure I'll be injured? Young man, it's not that we look down on you. Come, wear this." Lu Ming said and took out another battle suit and put it on Jiangchen. He patted Jiangchen's shoulder and said, "Don't worry, we'll watch from the side. Nothing will happen to you." Jiangchen rolled his eyes and thought to himself, are all the people in the ancestral realm like this? Are they born to be arrogant? Or are they overconfident? Come. Let's start. I don't want to talk nonsense with you." Jiangchen was irritated. He threw the 2 pieces of fighting spirit aside. Then he said to the youngster who was serving tea, "You go first. Don't blame me." The disciple narrowed his eyes and threw out a punch. Boom! With a loud explosion, Jiangchen widened his eyes. He did not see the trajectory of his opponent's attack. He only felt as if his chest had been hit by a bolt of lightning. In the next moment, Jiangchen saw the scenery around him moving forward while his body flew backward. Wah! Then, Jiangchen felt something sweet in his throat and spat out a mouthful of blood. After he fell to the ground, it took him more than 10 breaths to dissolve the power of the young man's punch. He struggled to get up. "Oh my God!" At this moment, Jiangchen was stunned. His heart was in turmoil. He knew very well that there was a layer of chaotic energy outside his body to protect him. If it was not for this layer of chaotic energy, the young man's punch would have shattered his body. Even his soul would have been injured. Jiangchen could not believe that a true God realm cultivator, a young man who had just become a god, could beat him, an emperor god, to such a state with 1 punch. "Little friend Jiangchen, are you okay? Look at you. I told you to put on the battle suit but you didn't listen. Look at you now. Are you hurt?" Lu Fang and Lu Ming walked over. Although they were concerned, they could not hide the ridicule in their eyes. Chapter 1364. Jiangchen was shocked, and his face flushed red. He had been bullying those weaker than him for so many years, and he was almost invincible in the same realm. But now, he was beaten to the ground by a true god. If news of this spread, it would be too embarrassing. "I told you can't do it," the disciple's servant said seriously. "You came from the outside world, right? The cultivators in the outside world are all like this. They think that they are strong because of their cultivation, but in the eyes of the people in the ancestral realm, they are nothing." "Why is that?" Jiangchen was puzzled. "We were born in the ancestral realm, and the moment we were born, we were eroded by the curse. So if we want to live, we have to keep cultivating and work hard," Lu Fang explained. "Our cultivation may not be high, but we are all condensed essences. I have lived for more than 60,000 years. As a divine king, I am considered a top expert in the ancestral realm," Lu Ming said proudly. "If I can leave this place and go to the outside world, I can definitely defeat many extraordinaries with my divine king cultivation. Even half-step immortals won't be a problem." Jiangchen was shocked. A divine king dared to fight half-step immortals? Wasn't this a little too ridiculous? Fortunately, Lu Fang and Lu Ming explained to Jiangchen. As it turned out, the living beings in the ancestral realm had to work hard to cultivate if they wanted to live. Only by increasing their cultivation level could their lifespan increase, and they could live longer. However, the curse of the ancestral realm would rob them of their cultivation and lifespan. Therefore, the cultivators in the ancestral realm had to spend decades or even centuries to break through to the next realm. In the ancestral realm, those who had become gods were old monsters who had lived for tens of thousands of years. For example, the disciple's servant looked young, but he had lived for more than 30,000 years. Moreover, to break through to the true god realm in 30,000 years, he was definitely considered a genius in the ancestral realm. In order to survive, we can only cultivate with all our might. Then, we will be robbed, and then cultivate again, and so on. Lu Fang sighed. For us, one more day is one more day. Everyone wants to live longer. Therefore, those who were born in the ancestral realm are all cultivation maniacs. Some time ago, I actually broke through to the supreme god realm, but my cultivation was taken away, and I fell to the true god realm. The disciple's servant sighed. If I didn't have my cultivation taken away, I would be. At this point, the disciple's servant thought for a moment and mumbled. I should be a supernatural being now, right? Holy sh*t. Jiangchen was speechless and his eyes widened. After a few breaths of time, he finally came to his senses. The creatures of the ancestral realm were like this. If they did not cultivate diligently, they would not live for long. At most, they would live for 1,000 years. If he was immortal, he probably wouldn't live past 30 to 50 years old. You've been cultivating continuously, but your cultivation is constantly being suppressed and deprived. Then you cultivate again. What's left is the essence of the great path. Jiangchen sighed. It's really unreasonable if you're not strong. But for us, we'd rather not have such invincible combat power. Lu Fang sighed. We want freedom and to live in the real world. As soon as he said that, the few of them fell silent. They all knew that the ancestral realm's curse was very difficult to break. Otherwise, the ancestral realm would not have been sealed until this era. Can't you go out? Jiangchen asked. We were born in the ancestral realm. From the moment we were born, a curse was planted in our souls. We can't leave the ancestral realm, Lu Ming explained. If we force ourselves to leave, we'll be counterattacked by the curse. We can't withstand that kind of counterattack. In the end, we're just a group of poor prisoners. The disciple's servant sighed. Jiangchen also sighed heavily. Although he had just arrived in the ancestral realm, he knew how painful it was to live in the ancestral realm. Looking up was the sky, freedom, and hope. However, the living beings in the ancestral realm could only look up and sigh. It was difficult for them to take that step. It was like an eternally unbreakable cage that had trapped them in the ancestral realm for generations to come. If you can withstand the power of the curse, you can go out, right? Suddenly, a thought flashed through Jiang Chen's mind, and he asked excitedly. When Lu Ming and the other two heard that, they looked at Jiang Chen as if he was an idiot. Was there a need to ask such a question? I think I might be able to help you leave this place, Jiang Chen said softly. Then, he discussed with the few strands of chaotic qi in his body. In the end, one strand of chaotic qi was unwilling to move. It continued to form clones, while another strand of chaotic qi protected Jiang Chen. Therefore, only one strand of chaotic qi could bring one person out. Are you sure there's no problem? Jiang Chen asked. I can bring one person out, but not for too long. He will have to come back after a while, the strand of chaotic qi said. After all, it was the curse of the ancestral realm. No matter how extraordinary the chaotic qi was, it could not remove the curse in their bodies. However, it was not a problem to bring them out to play. Do you want to see the outside world? Jiang Chen asked. Hearing that, Lu Fang and the others became serious. Their eyes shone with excitement. They were trapped in the ancestral realm, and they wanted to go out and see the outside world all the time. Young friend Jiang Chen, do you have a way? Lu Ming asked. There is a way, but you won't be able to stay out for too long, Jiang Chen said. Then, he placed the strand of chaotic qi in front of him and said, This strand of chaotic qi can allow you to go out temporarily, but only one person can be brought out at a time. As the great elder of the number 1 sect in the south, this is my first chance to go out. I won't stand on ceremony. Lu Fang's expression became serious. However, Lu Ming, who was at the side, immediately jumped up and said angrily, I was the previous sect leader. With that, the two old men started to argue. After a dozen breaths, Jiang Chen smiled bitterly and said, Why don't we let the young people go out and see the world first? There will be plenty of opportunities anyway. All right. In the end, Lu Ming and Lu Fang agreed. They looked at the young man who was serving tea and said, You'll go out and see the world. At the same time, you can make the ancestral realm famous. I'll try my best. The young man did not seem to have much confidence. There was even a trace of panic in the depths of his eyes. After all, he had been in the ancestral realm since he was young. He was still a little flustered when he was suddenly asked to go to the outside world. It's okay. Now that the outside world is under the control of the ancestral court, the great wide world is huge. Other than a few places that you can't set foot in, you can go anywhere else, Jiang Chen said with a smile. Then, he covered the young man with a strand of chaotic qi. Chapter 1365. The disciple's expression froze as a wisp of chaotic aura entered his body. Then, there was a rumbling sound coming from his body. It was as if something had awakened in his body. The disciple's aura became even more terrifying. In just a few seconds, the disciple's aura soared from a true god to a godly venerable. The suppressed and deprived cultivation has recovered. Jiang Chen was shocked. It was too terrifying to soar from a true god to a godly venerable in such a short time. His gaze landed on Lu Ming and Lu Fang. If these two old deity kings were to be possessed by the chaotic aura, the curse in their bodies would be suppressed. If their cultivation recovered, wouldn't they be able to reach the level of transcendence? No. It was very likely that they would become half-step immortals. Is this my true self that is not affected by the curse? The disciple was very excited. He felt that his soul was clear and everything had become clean. He waved his arm and a strong wind surged. Wherever his arm passed, the void exploded. Something's not right. After a few seconds, the disciple frowned. It seemed that there was a problem. Jiang Chen's expression changed. He asked worriedly, What's wrong? Did the chaotic aura affect you? I feel that my cultivation base can still recover by a large margin. The disciple frowned. Maybe I have to leave the ancestral realm for my cultivation to fully recover. Then, Why don't we leave now? Jiangchen asked. Jiangchen had planned to stay in the ancestral realm for a while longer. However, looking at the disciple's excited and expectant face, Jiangchen felt that it was fine to go back first. He would explain to Bai Fingyu and the others before returning. It would save them from worrying. Let's go. After a few breaths, Jiangchen got to his feet and flew up with the disciple who was serving tea. They streaked across the sky and rushed out of the ancestral realm without any hindrance. After leaving the ancestral realm, Jiangchen looked at the young man worriedly. He was afraid that something had happened to him. Fortunately, the young man was fine. However, his cultivation remained at the godly venerable level and did not recover. What's going on? I clearly feel that part of my cultivation base hasn't recovered yet, so why? The tea-serving disciple had an ugly expression on his face. He was very concerned about his reputation and was afraid that Jiangchen would think that he was bragging. Jiangchen didn't care. He waved his hand and said with a smile, "Let's go. I'll take you to the ancestral court to take a look. Now, the great wide world belongs to the ancestral court. It won't be long before I use the power of the world to release the ancestral realm. Looks like you're doing pretty well." The disciple who was serving tea praised. You've lived longer than me. Jiangchen smiled bitterly. After all, who in the great thousand world would dare to call him a brat? Even those mighty beings who had survived from prehistoric times didn't dare to call him that. However, Jiangchen didn't care. He immediately led the disciple to the ancestral court. The two of them were very fast. It took them a day to arrive near the ancestral court. However, as soon as he arrived, he saw flames burning outside the ancestral court. There was even the sound of battle. Huh! Someone is attacking the ancestral court? Jiangchen was dumbfounded. He had only left for a day or two, and someone dared to attack the ancestral court. Could it be that they thought that Wakako had brought the powerhouses of the ancestral court to battle and that the ancestral court was unguarded and easy to bully? This is the ancestral court you established? It doesn't seem like much. The tea-serving disciple teased. How would others dare to attack a truly invincible force in the world? The powerhouses of the ancestral court have all gone out to battle, Jiangchen said softly. His aura erupted, and he thought that he would settle it himself. After all, he could feel that the people who were attacking the ancestral court didn't have high cultivation bases, and there were only two extraordinary beings. To the current Jiangchen, extraordinary beings were nothing. As long as he used all his strength, he could suppress them. Let me see how strong the cultivators of the outside world are. However, before Jiangchen could make a move, the tea-serving disciple rushed over excitedly. Jiangchen hurriedly followed, afraid that this guy would hit the wrong person. However, Jiangchen was obviously too worried. The creatures of the ancestral court were very sensitive to bloodlines. After the tea-serving disciple arrived outside the ancestral court, he quickly saw the difference between the enemy and himself. At this moment, before Jiangchen could speak, the young man took a step forward. Wind blew under his feet, causing the space to tremble. He stared and shouted, "Who dares to invade the courtyard of the ancestral realm? You scared me to death. I thought it was Jiangchen who came back. What's going on these days? A divine master dares to interfere? Do you really think everyone is Jiangchen?" The group of people was stunned. When they saw the cultivation base of the tea-serving disciple, many people laughed mockingly. "I'm just a tea-serving disciple of the number one sect in the south of the ancestral realm." At this moment, the young man introduced himself, but his identity really made people blush. Even Jiangchen had a strange expression on his face, and his old face was slightly red. "I say, is this how you introduce yourself?" Jiangchen rolled his eyes. The tea-serving disciple was really a little embarrassing. What the hell? A tea-serving disciple dares to interfere here? What ancestral realm? Ancestral realm is nothing! Many people mocked. They did not believe that the young man was from the ancestral realm, and they did not believe that the young man could stop them. Boom! However, in the next moment, The young man pressed down with his palm. The palm print was like the collapse of the sky, suppressing everyone below. From divine masters to emperors, everyone was suppressed by this palm. They did not even have the strength to resist. After this palm strike, only 2 extraordinary humans were left standing in the area. What? This combat strength is comparable to Jiang Chen's. Everyone was shocked. Their eyes were locked on the tea-serving disciple, and they did not see Jiang Chen, who was not far away at all. What can compare to Jiang Chen's? With his combat strength, if he was in the #1 sect in the south, he wouldn't even be qualified to serve tea. The tea-serving disciple said seriously. This guy was speaking the truth. However, this was the truth. It was not very harmful, but it was extremely insulting. Especially to Jiang Chen, this was King's slap to his face, but he could not slap back. This feeling was really uncomfortable. I'll kill you! You're just a divine master after all. At this moment, the 2 extraordinaires rushed over. Tao art surged, order and laws burst forth, like dragons and clouds, appearing beside them. Just a divine master after all? The tea-serving disciple raised his eyebrows, and his eyes lit up. He suddenly turned around and looked at Jiang Chen, who was not far away, and said, I've never lied, and I don't like to boast. Today, I'll show you what level my cultivation can reach after fully recovering. Chapter 1366. As soon as the tea-serving disciple finished speaking, a series of roars came out from his body. It was like a thunderclap, shaking the entire world. His aura soared, and the Tao of heaven and earth gathered around him. Auspicious clouds fell from the sky and enveloped him like a sea of colorful clouds. In an instant, his cultivation rose again and again until his body emitted a wisp of immortal qi. Half-step to immortal? This guy. What's going on? At this moment, not to mention the 2 extraordinaries, even Jiang Chen was stunned. In the ancestral realm, he was only a true god, but in the outside world, after his cultivation had completely recovered, this mere tea-serving disciple's cultivation had reached half-step to immortal? Then, if Lu Ming and Lu Fang came to the outside world and recovered their cultivation, wouldn't they be infinitely close to immortal realm? This? I feel like I've found a treasure! Jiang Chen was excited. He thought to himself that this time, he had found a powerful backer. He decided that in the future, he would build a good relationship with the group of big shots in the ancestral realm. From time to time, he would take them out for a stroll. When the time came, he would just raise his hand and kill whoever he didn't like. If you were in the ancestral realm, you wouldn't live for more than 100 years. At this moment, the tea-serving disciple whispered. With a flick of his finger, a thunderbolt fell. The 2 extraordinaries didn't even have the strength to resist, and were directly shocked into powder. You're too ruthless! Jiang Chen was speechless. This kind of cultivation was undoubtedly the top existence in the outside world. It's okay. After all, I'm still young. The tea-serving disciple was very modest. The 2 ancestors, Lu Ming and Lu Fang, are the ruthless ones. If the 2 of them recovered their cultivation, what realm would they reach? Jiang Chen asked curiously. Maybe they could break through the shackles. The tea-serving disciple frowned and said. He wasn't sure. After all, the higher the realm, the harder it was to improve. Perhaps after Lu Ming and Lu Fang came to the outside world, their cultivation would be about the same as this tea-serving disciple after recovering. Are you all okay? At this moment, Jiang Chen looked at Bai Fingyu and the others in the ancestral court mountain gate. Just now, none of them had made a move. They had only activated the array formation within the mountain gate. It's fine, but I'm just afraid that some people will attack ancestral court again while Wakako and the others are not around, Bai Fengyu said worriedly. It's fine if 1 or 2 transcendents come, but if there are too many, do you really think that my ancestral court is easy to bully? Jiang Chen raised his brows. He then looked at the tea-serving disciple and said, Let's go, I'll show you around. The young man was no fool. He glanced at Jiang Qin and said bluntly, Tell me, who are you going to beat up? How about a big fight? Jiang Qin blushed. His little scheme had been seen through. You lead the way. I'll take care of it, the disciple said confidently. After all, with his cultivation, he could do whatever he wanted in the great wide world, but he could at least do so, right? Following that, Jiang Qin gave some instructions to Bai Fingyu and the rest before setting off. Half a day later, under Jiang Chen's enthusiastic guidance, the two of them arrived at the mountain gate of the Red Spider Lily. Looking around, there was still darkness in front of them. There was no trace of life, just like a dead starry sky. However, if one looked carefully, they would find that there were red spider lilies standing in the darkness. At this moment, with the arrival of Jiang Qin and the tea-serving disciple, the dark starry sky suddenly erupted with endless starlight. Then, the red spider lilies bloomed one after another, and their radiance illuminated the vast universe. Jiang Qin? What are you doing here? Are you courting death? At this moment, a few angry voices were heard, and then Heng rushed out from the depths of the mountain gate of the red spider lily. He looked around. When he did not see Rotten and the others, the killing intent in Heng's eyes soared. Rotten and the others are not here, and you dare to come outside my mountain gate? Heng said coldly. I'm afraid you won't be able to go back today. Do you not treat me as a human? At this moment, the tea-serving disciple coughed a few times, and his eyes were filled with displeasure. He was such a big living person, but that person did not take him seriously. What infuriated the tea-serving disciple the most was that his cultivation had recovered, and he was a half-step true immortal. How could that person ignore such a cultivation? You! And Heng only reacted when he heard that. After all, in his heart, there were very few people in the current world who could go against him, and he knew all of them. Therefore, he did not have any impression of this tea-serving disciple at all. However, Heng's expression changed abruptly. He stared fixedly at the tea-serving disciple and exclaimed, You're from the ancestral realm. Humph. Exactly. The tea-serving disciple's eyes were filled with killing intent as he stared at Heng and said, I heard from the older generation of the ancestral realm that the Red Spider Lily clan contributed greatly to the seal of the ancestral realm. The ancestral realm has declined, but the Red Spider Lily clan still exists. What do you want to do today? Heng said in a low voice, and the sun and moon seemed to be spinning when he opened and closed his eyes. He used a secret technique to see through the tea-serving disciple's background. What? Half-step immortal ascension. After a few breaths, he saw it clearly and could not help but exclaim, How old is this guy? It's said that he's the 5th patriarch of the Red Spider Lily clan. Jiang Qin retreated a distance and muttered, If you think you can win, then fight. If not, we'll retreat. You think you can come and go as you please? This is the mountain gate of the Red Spider Lily clan. You can't behave atrociously here. So what if you're accompanied by a half-step immortal ascension? Heng rebuked angrily. Boom! However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw the tea-serving disciple attack directly. With a punch, the fist light was like the sun. As it fell, it shattered the void, and even the laws turned into chains that broke inch by inch. I was a half-step immortal ascension in prehistory. Why should I be afraid of you? Heng roared. With his identity and status, he felt that he was being looked down upon. In the next moment, Heng attacked angrily. His palm was like a blooming red spider lily, and it carried traces of the power of reincarnation. With one punch, 6 black holes appeared and destroyed the tea-serving disciple's fist mark. Then, Heng took a step forward like a true dragon and charged toward the tea-serving disciple. I can't beat him. Retreat. The tea-serving disciple was very honest and never lied. He instantly understood that he was no match for Heng. He turned around, picked up Jiang Qin, tore through the void, and ran away without looking back. Heng was furious. He was indeed more powerful than the tea-serving disciple, But he could not catch up with the other party if he wanted to run away. If you dare to invade my Red Spider Lily clan again, I'll really start a war with your ancestral court. Anhung roared. His voice was so loud that it even spread through half of the great wide world. At this moment, hundreds of millions of miles away from the Red Spider Lily clan, the tea-serving disciple wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. His face darkened as he said in a muffled voice, I can't beat him. Then, should we ask Lu Ming or Patriarch Lu Fang to come out? Jiang Chen's eyes shone with a cunning light. Chapter 1367. Jiang Chen and the tea-serving disciple's eyes flashed with a cunning light, especially the tea-serving disciple. After coming to the outside world, he found that the cultivators outside weren't as strong as he imagined. The tea-serving disciple had an idea. If the cultivators outside weren't strong, then wouldn't the cultivators from the ancestral realm be able to run amok after coming out? Thinking about how the cultivators from the ancestral realm had been trapped for so many generations, the tea-serving disciple couldn't help but feel aggrieved. It was time for the cultivators from the ancestral realm to come out and vent their anger. What if Lu Ming and Lu Fang come out and still can't beat Anhung? Jiang Chen sighed with a glimmer deep in his eyes. The tea-serving disciple had a strange expression after hearing this. He stared at Jiang Chen and said, Come on, how can I not know what you are thinking? If the two ancestors come out, Anhung will be nothing. Even if the two ancestors can't beat Anhung, there are still plenty of other ancestors in the ancestral realm. As long as they can come out. After hearing this, Jiang Chen was immediately filled with confidence. Afterward, he brought the tea-serving disciple back to the ancestral realm. On their way back to the ancestral realm, Jiang Chen asked out of curiosity, What's your name? I can't keep calling you the tea-serving disciple, right? Don't you have a name? The tea-serving disciple couldn't help but wryly smile after hearing this. Living in the ancestral realm is extremely difficult, so how can I remember a name? Maybe I had a name when I was born, but I have lived for more than 30,000 years and have long forgotten it. This is a bit sad. Jiang Chen sighed. When someone didn't even want to remember their own name, one wouldn't be able to understand the despair in the depths of their heart. One day, the ancestral realm will be released, Jiang Chen said with a serious expression. After another half a day, Jiang Chen and the tea-serving disciple returned to the number 1 sect in the south. The moment they came back, Lu Ming and Lu Fang rushed over and looked at the tea-serving disciple with excitement and curiosity. Their eyes flashed with a yearning light. However, before the two of them could speak, the disciple holding the tea directly knelt before them with a thud. He lowered his head and said with an ashamed expression, Ancestors, I've embarrassed both of you. I have let down the number 1 sect of the south. Hearing this, Lu Fang and Lu Ming were stunned for a moment. Obviously, they didn't expect that their own tea-serving disciples would return in such a manner. What happened? Lu Fang's face darkened. Were you bullied? However, just as he finished speaking, Lu Fang shook his head and said, That's impossible. With your strength, there shouldn't be many people in the outside world who can be your opponent after you release your cultivation, right? I was beaten up by someone called Anhung. He claimed to be the 5th ancestor of the Red Spider Lily tribe. The disciple said. He also said that there were no experts in the ancestral realm, and that he would beat up as many as he wanted. Jiang Chen, who was listening at the side, was stunned. He secretly thought that he couldn't use the lines that he had prepared long ago. This tea server really knew how to trick people. I don't think he's here to serve tea. He's here to dig a hole. If I introduce him to a few virtuous beings in the future. Jiang Chen thought. Suddenly, an idea flashed in his mind. He walked to the tea-serving disciple and said, Duanda was really beaten up badly outside, especially that guy called Anhung. When he heard that Anhung came from the ancestral realm, he really killed him. Duanda? What? Lu Fang and Lu Ming were stunned. Even the tea-serving disciple was dumbfounded. Jiang Chen said seriously. He forgot his name. I thought that since he called himself a tea-serving disciple, he might as well use Duan as his surname, and use benevolence as his name to show the grandeur of the number one sect of the South. The name doesn't matter, right? Duan de. This name is not bad. They murmured a few times. Then, Lu Fang's face turned completely gloomy. His eyes were filled with killing intent as he said, "Let me go out this time. If I don't kill that in Hun, my surname is not Lu." Lu Fang was very confident. After all, although he was only a divine king, once he released his cultivation, he might be half a step away from becoming an immortal. He might even break through the shackles. Of course, the main reason was that Lu Fang really wanted to go out and see the world. "Young friend, can you really bring us out? This must be the young friend Jiangchen that you are talking about, right?" At this moment, 6 or 7 white-haired old men walked out from the depths of the mountain gate. Soon, they arrived in front of Jiangchen. They looked at Jiangchen from head to toe. When they confirmed that Jiangchen's bloodline was also from the ancestral realm, these old men became very kind, as if they were grandpas next door. "Greetings, seniors." Jiangchen cupped his hands and bowed. Although these old men were also divine kings, Jiangchen did not dare to underestimate them. These old men are from a few sects nearby. They are all old monsters who have lived for about the same time as us. Lu Fang introduced. Then, a trace of vigilance appeared in his eyes. He said, "Don't fight with me. This time, it's my turn to go out." "It's okay, we won't fight. We will line up." Yes, line up." These old men did not quarrel. They must have discussed it beforehand. "Then, why don't I bring Ancestor Lu Fang out first?" Jiangchen said. "Duan De suffered a loss outside. Ancestor Lu Fang, you can help him get back at him first." "Of course. Then we will wait here for you to come back." In the end, Jiangchen transferred Duan De's chaotic qi to Lu Fang. Then, the two of them rushed out of the ancestral realm. As soon as they came out of the ancestral realm, a shocking explosion came from Lu Fang's body. It was as if something had shattered. At the same time, there were countless Tao skills that turned into auspicious signs around him. The void above his head cracked open. Vaguely, one could see a broken void great path leading to the void above him. "Oh? So this old man's cultivation has already reached this level?" Lu Fang was also surprised. He looked up at the broken path in the endless void and said, "Do you know what this is?" "What?" Jiangchen was shocked. Although he did not know what it was, he could feel pure and strong immortal qi sprinkling down from the endless void. "The road of immortal ascension," Lu Fang explained. "If the great path of heaven and earth had not collapsed, I should be able to walk on the road of immortal ascension and become an immortal directly." Jiangchen blinked. Even his divine soul was shocked. This cultivation, wasn't it a little too strong? Unfortunately, the environment of heaven and earth had changed. No one could become an immortal. Looking at the broken path in the void, Jiangchen asked, "Is it because that path is broken?" "Yes, I don't know what happened. Maybe it was cut off by someone. Someone doesn't want us to become an immortal," Lu Fang guessed. Of course, he was not sure. "Let's go to the Red Spider Lily clan." Coincidentally, the ancestral realm and the Red Spider Lily clan have some enmity, Lu Fang said. With his cultivation, he did not need Jiangchen to lead the way. He spread out his divine sense and found the mountain gate of the Red Spider Lily clan. You're tuning into the Phoenix Nights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.